Hello, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. Thank you for being here. My name is Bethlyn Houlihan. Our chair, Justin, and co-chair, Justin Hem, and co-chair Don Capello were not able to be here tonight for family reasons and health reasons. So I am going to, for the first time, chair a meeting. So please bear with me as I try to make sure that I do things the way that they're supposed to be done. The first thing I wanted to do was to welcome everyone and just make something clear about the agenda. Let me pull it up amidst all the things. Okay. So in the agenda, you'll see that we have the chairperson's report, and then the superintendent's report, and then the student representative report, and then citizens' comments. And for today, that's the only place we have citizens' comments. So we are next. We know that there are other things on the agenda that might be of interest to people that they want to give any consideration or say something about. So there's something in there that you wanted to give a consideration about. This is the first time we're going to have the chance. For instance, one of the things on there is the budget, the proposed budget cuts. And this is the first time do we have those as a handout in the back of the room?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So if you didn't get those are a handout in the back of the room. And anyone that may have been at the FinCom meeting, it was also discussed there for the first time. So this is the first time as a school committee that we're actually able to kind of talk about that. So we're going to have, I'm going to explain in my chairperson's report a little bit more about that so that I can help kind of walk through that process before we get to public comments. So you kind of we can contextualize things for everyone that's here, and you can kind of understand what the process that we're going to follow. The first thing I need to do tonight is to have us accept the minutes from the last meeting. And so I would ask if we could have from the March 13th meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from March 13th.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, any discussion?
Not sure if I can vote because I wasn't here. I always forget that. Can I?
You can vote on
Okay,
it.
good.
You can,
Okay.
that's what I was told.
Yeah, I always forget if I can. Okay.
'Cause yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, very good. So no changes, and I heard second, and so all in favor? All right. So we have the minutes from the March 13th meeting have been accepted. And now I'm going to go into a chairperson's report. I ended up myself kind of creating some things based on what's been going on. So let me pull that up here. Okay. All right, so before I get into anything else, let me just say, go a little bit more into detail. So the way that we're doing things tonight is this is the first time that we're talking about the budget priorities. And once we get to there, we're going to have more of a conversation. What we're going to do is there's the next meeting, which is on April 11th. On that agenda, we'll also have the budget, and at that point, we'll be able to address considerations, and if there's anything that comes up, we can make sure then to have more of a dialogue and conversation around those proposed cuts. And then on April 25th, I think that's correct, the next meeting on April 25th is the public hearing. So that's the public hearing, and that's where we literally, like the name, we literally sit here and everyone has an opportunity to state their comments. The public has the opportunity to say whatever they feel about the proposed cuts, and for us to hear those and consider before we make the final vote. So that's kind of the process of it. So if at this point, and I'm sure there are other things, I'm just using that as an example because we know every year that budget is one of those things that's important to people as well, and there are a lot of things right now that are important to people. But in that example, if there is anything that you want to discuss for anything else on the agenda, you're welcome to make that comment. We'll make note of it, and then we'll be having our deliberations. And if there's anything else that comes up as you're considering things, you're of course always welcome to email us, and then we'll be discussing things at the next meeting as well. So that's kind of the process that we're following for tonight and through the rest of the time in relation particularly to the budget. And so that's what I wanted to say about that. And then I just wanted to mention there have been some great events going on. At the Meadow High School, they just had foreign language dinner, which we missed because we've been sick in our house. The Jazz Cafe is tomorrow night from 6 to 9 p.m. in Fowler Auditorium. The Fowler play is next weekend for anyone that wants to go, 7 p.m. on Friday and 2 p.m. on Saturday. It's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And then Green Meadow is having their art show on Wednesday the 10th from 6 to 8, which is always fun to see all the great creations. And I'm very excited that that's able to happen. I'm sure that took a lot of work to pull off, given everything else that's been going on in that building. There's been a lot of meetings that we've been having. There's was a FinCom meeting this past Monday that was a joint meeting with the school committee, in which the FinCom, we answered a comprehensive list of questions regarding Green Meadow circumstances and the related costs. And we also had, like, that was the first part of the meeting, and the second part was the proposed budget cuts and their impact. And it was a very productive meeting. We really appreciated their taking the time to really sit down and ask us those questions and really consider things as a community. And that meeting was recorded, and it can be accessed. I did check today, and it is on the YouTube WAVM channel. And it's called Maynard Finance Committee School Committee of March 25th, 2019. So if anyone would care to watch that, or parts of it. This coming Tuesday, there will also be school committee reps attending the BOS meeting in relation to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. I was going to say administration, but I knew that was wrong. Application in relation to Green Meadow. And that would be to consider options for what we could do with that building. That application is due March 12th, so we'll be, April 12th. So we'll be asking for their support in relation to that application before we have to turn it in on April 12th. And all three subcommittees continued to meet. That's the budget, policy, and curriculum subcommittees. And CPAC liaisons have also met with CPAC reps on a monthly basis, and they're meeting with the CPAC board and administrative meetings that are also beginning to happen on a monthly basis. And I also wanted to just make sure to just do a shout out, because we're now continuing to be at this point where we're trying to create an equilibrium around the relocation that's happened at Green Meadow. I have GM in my notes. The community, through the community and their generosity, the teachers, the administrators in the building, and everything that everyone's been doing, and the ongoing hard work to continue to adjust to the relocation and make that work for everyone involved. And I just want to make sure, I know that that's an everyday thing right now, that that's not just that's going to be through the year, and that some of the stuff we're going to discuss today will hopefully really help to move forward some of the concerns and things that people have been considering in that building too. I don't know, so I think that's all that I have.
Just do a shout out?
Yeah, please do.
I just wanted to do a shout out to Josh Morse. I was in a meeting earlier this week. We were putting together the application for Massachusetts Business MSBA, thank you very much. I'm not good with the acronyms, but, and he was really, really instrumental in helping us put a really good proposal forward, so thank you for your time, Josh.
All right, so that's all I'm going to say. I blabbered on enough, and now I'm going to let the superintendent's report.
Okay. So as outlined in School Committee Policy 651 and Administrative Regulation 651.1, the principal approves all field trips except those field trips of a distance greater than 75 miles or including travel between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Any trips that fall into those two categories or include overnight stays need to be approved by the superintendent, and then the superintendent informs the school committee. In the past, our Maynard High School Amnesty International chapter has attended the Get on the Bus campaign in New York City. This year, the event will be held on April 5th, 2019. In order to attend, they'll be driving more than 75 miles, and they'll start their travel at 5:30 a.m. So those two parameters, it had to come before me for approval. The president of Amnesty International, the Maynard High School chapter, wrote a very compelling letter about the benefits to students for attending this event. And the teacher sponsors have filled out the appropriate paperwork, and as a result, I've approved this field trip, and I wanted to notify the school committee members tonight. In addition to that, some of the other things that I want to let the public know is that the Green Meadow abatement program that we're doing in the old wing will be starting on April 2nd as of right now. The approved plan and the process has been agreed upon. There are a couple of events though. The abatement will be happening in the evening after the school day is over, and The Excel program has been kind enough to, the last time we needed to do that type of work, they'll move over here from about 4 o'clock on for the drop-offs. But there are 2 events. You mentioned one is on the 10th and another one is on the 8th, is preschool registration. And so on those 2 nights, there will not be any abatement going on, just so that people will be okay with that. And it should take about 3 weeks. So we're hoping that by after April vacation, that during April vacation, that will be the end of the abatement process. So I wanted to update the community on that, and I will be sharing that out with the community in an email, but I wanted to let the school committee know that those plans finally came together. And then over the last couple of weeks, I've been meeting with the preschool and the kindergarten teams. And this week, I met with the kindergarten team because they had expressed some concern about, even after the renovations, going back into the 1950s side of the old wing. And we discussed some ideas that had been generated earlier on when we first had to try and figure out how to get everybody back into school. Ideas like having portable classrooms and how that would take up the whole parking lot. And as it is, we don't have a lot of parking for parents and staff. And so some of those ideas aren't viable. But they did come up with a couple of other ideas that I felt like I should share with the school committee, and what I'd like to do is continue to work with them and work with all of our constituents to see if there's, other ideas that we can do to accommodate their concerns. Some of the ideas we've talked about before was like moving the 8th grade back over to the high school, and then moving probably the 3rd grade up to Fowler, because they would be the next age-appropriate level to be here. Other ideas were to maybe move other grades into that wing that were, and so we're looking at a bunch of ideas, but it was very nice for them and I to be talking collaboratively about those potential solutions. And of course, for any of our teachers who have health concerns, we want to accommodate their needs, so we're working. They generated some great ideas, so I just want to update you that those ideas are coming, and we'll work on them some more, and we'll report back to you on those. And that's my superintendent's report.
And we can use that information for our future Green Meadow.
Yes,
committee,
in fact, I'm sure
which is great. Yeah,
they'll be having interest in maybe weighing in on that. That's a great point.
Yeah. So-
Yeah, when we get to the future Green Meadow, I will definitely we'll want to talk more about that in particular, and I think that will be part of their charge, is making sure the air quality continues to be looked at.
I was just wondering if Ginny Mannion was in the audience, because she's the student from the Amnesty program. She did an amazing job with her letter for that, but I guess she's not here, but she did a great job, so.
Bob, I do have one other question in relation to your report. So the abatement, has that been announced? Because we want to make sure that we get that out to the community.
Yeah, it hasn't, so I'll make sure tomorrow to get that out.
Okay.
Maybe even late tonight.
Okay, great. So that'll go out through all our communication channels? So
To the
everyone's aware.
Green Meadow parents, yeah.
Okay,
And on the website.
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to have our student representative report. We have AJ and Patrick coming up, who are also our recorders, our AV tech people.
Yes, so you had mentioned earlier, today we had the international dinner, and that's part of Foreign Language Week that the Foreign Language Department puts on. So all this week we've had some announcements read in different languages. So I thought that was really fun to listen to. And then Midsummer Night's Dream closed 2 weeks ago, and 2 days after they had auditions for the next show, which is called Godspell, which will be opening May 24th and 25th.
That's very impressive how fast you guys.
It's really pretty cool.
And
But-
can I just say something about that show?
Yes.
So we went to Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think we should give you a round of applause for your role. You've had us rolling.
Thank you. On April 5th, the junior class, or part of the junior class, will be taking a trip to Boston for the National College Fair, which hosts over 300 different colleges and universities, both nationally and internationally. So I know a lot of juniors are excited to get their first step into the college application process.
Great.
This past week was March Madness for our school. We had a bunch of events this Friday, and the seniors did pull through, albeit by 1 point in front of the sophomores. I won't say who came in last, but
The teachers came in last.
yeah.
Juniors came seconds last.
But that was a fun time for all the students there, get out of class, have a little fun, run around. And next Thursday, the National Honor Society will be doing our group service project. So we will basically be traveling to different locations and helping to make that location better. So at Town Hall, we are going to be remulching the front. At Fowler, actually, we're going to be helping to clean out one of the storage rooms. Talk with Mr. Costello about that. And we're also helping clean up the fire station a little bit. And then that following Monday, we're going to proceed to help wash all the windows in the high school, because it's something the custodians actually said they have a really hard time keeping up on. So figuring to give them a hand after school that day. DC.
Yes. And then April break, or the beginning of April break, the MHS concert band and chorus will be heading out to Washington, D.C. And play in front of the Washington Monument. Okay. I think so, yeah.
And coming into April now for senior project, this is the month where students really start working on the actual project itself. And there's just been so many actually amazing projects. Like one student I know is hosting a 5K. They're making videos, helping with plays. One of them is doing a film festival. One of them is actually helping to build a solar panel that hopefully they can use somewhere in the school. And just new equipment being bought for the school. And it's really been nice to see all these projects. And now term 3 ends next Friday. So we're heading into our last term, and my last term entirely of senior year. I believe we have 39 days left.
Wow.
Who's counting? But it's really coming close, and it's come closer on me than I thought it has been. So I'll be at these next few meetings, but pretty soon it's going to be someone else up here. And that, I believe, wraps up our student rep report.
Any questions for us?
When is the prom this year?
May 10th.
Okay,
At the Burlington Marriott.
okay. Excellent, thank you.
Do you know when the senior presentations will be for the projects? Senior project?
May 17th, I know, is one of the key dates. I believe that's where we present to smaller groups. I forget when the trifold presentation is, though. I'm not sure if it's that same night. But May 17th, I know we do in a bunch of smaller groups. I'm fairly certain some of you have helped out with some of those in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it for people in the room that may or may not be aware, because it's just an awesome thing to be a part of, and to go in and actually be present while the seniors present their projects. And it's kind of the culmination of the year, and it's just really, it's just excellent to see. I think you should be so proud of what you end up doing, and it's just always really amazing to see.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Every year, it's very impressive.
It's very strange to think that you're heading into term 4. I hug a lot of trees and say thank you to them for, that's what we did when we were ending our time. We went around and said goodbye to everything. Any other questions? Do you have any questions? I'm trying to think of it. Oh, well, going to play in front of the monument, what is that is that in relation to something in particular?
It's just a public performance with the chorus and band.
That's very cool. So that's something that just got set up to be able to go and have
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, great. That's great that that's happening. All right, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move into, my computer shut down on me, but I believe it's public comment, right?
Citizens' comments, yeah.
Yeah, citizens' comments. So if anyone has anything they'd like to comment upon, anything at all, and then as I mentioned before, because we're doing this at this point, and then we're going to be deliberating within the rest of the agenda. So if there's anything at all that you want to say about anything, and then also if there's anything you want to make sure gets considered as we're talking through in the rest of the agenda, we're happy to take that now.
Hi,
Hi.
Lydia Clancy. I have a daughter in 4th grade. So I was at FinCom on Monday, and I was really disheartened to hear the change in the strings and choral programs. My daughter took violin this year. She loves it, and she participates in an after-school dance team, competition team. She will not be able to continue with violin, and she's very upset about that. I also am concerned about what appears to be a systematic pattern of slowly cutting back on the music programs in general in the schools. And so for your review, I have printed up some articles that support and promote music education, at least in K through 8, in schools during the school day, why it's important, and how that it's not just about music. It's about creating neural pathways in the brain. It's the only form of art and learning that crosses both hemispheres. And these neural pathways last long into your older years, and they have shown that it has very beneficial causes or results for Alzheimer's patients. And it helps to keep your brain healthy. So I really encourage you to reconsider what you're doing with the music program. I have also included an article on the importance of time to play. And I know this year that the recesses were joined down at Green Meadow, and they went from, I believe it was a 20 and a 15 to 1 25-minute recess. And that is following the cutback in the gym program from 3 years ago, when kindergartners used to have 2 gym classes a week. So they had 2 gym classes a week, 2 gym classes a day, and now that's been cut in half. And they are the ones who need to run and stretch and scream and play more than any of the other grades. So instead of cutting back on music, perhaps we should cut back on the electives that are at Green Meadow, that are not state required, and that are, yes, nice to have, but aren't essential. And make them electives. If parents really want to make them electives, because right now, I don't believe the students have a choice as to whether or not to participate in them. So I'm going to submit these. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll make sure that absent members receive them as well.
I'm also going to email you with the links.
Perfect.
That would be
Thank you.
fantastic.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Hello, Kevin Stone. I have a son, Richard, in the preschool program. I have a question for Dr. Girardi. On February 3rd, 2019, you wrote an email with a broad distribution list where you, quote, say, "Hi all, we may have to close Green Meadow for the next 2 weeks before vacation. We are assessing the situation." To which Don Capella replied, "Bob, I'm calling you in a bit. Please hold off on any more emails. Don." My question is what was the substance of that phone call? Did any town officials direct you to conceal your concerns about the school or to avoid shutting down the school system? To shutting down Green Meadow, sorry.
Yeah, I don't recall what that was. So,
Yeah, I have to say we do have, in fairness, we do have a lot of phone calls where it's like a quick thing, like a, hey, before you, we're often in communication to try to help them understand more about how to be able to communicate so we can be effective with the community. It's not to conceal things. I don't want to disregard your question because I think we do need to scrutinize and be very transparent around everything, but
Okay.
anyways, I'm sorry, go ahead.
My next question is for the full committee, including Dr. Girardi. How long have you been aware of the state of the Green Meadow roof, particularly its state of failure? And how long have you been aware that the Green Meadow roof is in fact leaking?
So I can just mention that at FinCom, we did talk about concerns about leaks even in the old wing going back to 1990.
Okay, I was thinking it was 2000.
And we did talk about different facilities directors over the years and their strategies to try and deal with it. So I think it could go back as far as 30 years.
Okay. Does any of the other committee members have any comment regarding their awareness of the leaking of the Green Meadow
It's my
roof?
recollection also. And there was at one point, I forget exactly when, that there was money that was allocated from the town meeting, and the person in charge at the time, it was $800,000, I think, and at the time, they decided to patch the Green Meadow versus using the $800,000 to do a replacement because there were other urgent needs.
All right. I would like to direct the committee to the Massachusetts School Building Authority Statement of Interest on 2017, where I quote, the MSBA asks, please provide a detailed description of issues surrounding the school facility system. Goes on to ask for more specificity, but I quote the school committee's response. They say, and I quote, there are many areas of the roof that are leaking. Some leaks appear to be caused by the edge metal flashing. There is significant shrinkage in the membrane on the ballasted roof along the wall flashings. These areas have been repaired multiple times. Membrane is pulling apart due to the stress from loss of mass from UV exposure and age. Perimeter metal is in fair condition. Expansion joint is in poor condition, has been repaired multiple times as well. There are portions of the roof that hold water. The ponding is worse because of the popped insulation, which prevents water from flowing properly towards drains. Drains themselves appear to be working properly. Portions of the field of the roof are failed, while others are in poor condition. The roof was due for replacement years ago, and the aging process is accelerating. There are many areas where the roof insulation is popped, caused by water infiltration, which rusts and snaps the insulation fasteners. This is creating tremendous pressure in the membrane and tearing it apart. Roof has been leaking for years, and many attempts have been made to buy time. The roof needs major restoration or replacement before further interior damage and/or indoor air quality is compromised. You guys don't remember this statement?
Look, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like we're in a position to be able to try to do back and forth with you right now. I'm more than happy to take all those materials and take a look at them. I can say that what you were just talking about was in 2013, because I
Right, I
took
thought it
notes
was
from the FinCom
2013,
meeting
yeah.
on Monday.
Yep.
So in 2013, there was a Fowler GM roof article for $800K, and then for some reason, they
Money was
returned.
redirected. No, we didn't return it. The money was redirected to other purposes.
Redirected
Not
to
by
other
us, by
Okay.
other departments.
By other
So,
departments, it
by
was
other
redirected.
departments,
So
we-
at that
100
point, we did
yeah.
try to put an article in and got that funded, but then the money got redirected.
I have one more question. Are you aware that Massachusetts general law specifies that a building where people are employed shall not be kept in an unsanitary condition, and that a leaking roof by multiple counts of the CMR is considered an unsanitary condition? In addition, we had a similar situation in Wareham where the school roof leaked, and within hours, they had a building inspector in there, and the building inspector shut the building down.
Thank you for your time and if you'd like to give us that information, you're more than welcome to email it to
Yeah.
us. That would be helpful to see.
I would be glad to.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Yep. Hey, Natasha.
Hello, Natasha Rivera.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi. Dr. Girardi, what were the period, the dates when the abatement process will be open in the evening, or will it be not open in the evening? I didn't hear the dates
Sorry
again.
about that. Yeah, so it's going to start on January 2nd,
April 2nd?
April 2nd. And the dates, and it will be in the evening after 4 PM. So
Except
that
for
way
which,
everything's.
there were two dates?
I believe it's the 8th is the pre-K registration, and the 10th is the.
Open house?
Open house.
Okay.
The 10th at Green Meadow, yeah, it's with the art show.
Open
Yeah,
house and art show.
it's- Yeah, okay, that's what I thought I,
So those 2 nights, because the parents and students are going to be there later, we just
Right.
asked the contractor. Those are some of the things that were holding us up from getting a definite that this is when it was going to start.
okay.
But we wanted to make sure that people were comfortable and that we held up the construction on those 2 nights.
Okay, thank you. I was also present at the FinCom meeting on Monday, and it was very insightful. One of the questions that came up, which I don't feel there was an answer to, but I'd certainly like to punt this back to you, Dr. Girardi, was about the AHERA report and the question that Ken Estabrook was asking about when it was received at the central office. Whose possession did it go in before it went into the binder?
So, interestingly enough, I don't think he asked it that way. He didn't say when it was received at the central office, and I think the answer Michelle gave was it was in the school, but it wasn't received at the central office. So it was received by the...
Michelle said it was received at the central office and that it went into the AHERA binder.
So
So what is the truth then?
my understanding is that it wasn't received by the central office. It was received by the designated person, and it was in a binder in the custodian's office. That's my understanding.
Okay, so you're saying it never made it to the central office, is what
That's
your
my
understanding is?
Yes.
And so the designated person at the DPW is what I'm guessing you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the DPW received the report, and that's where you're saying it remained?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so now I just want to clarify because I don't recall it being said that way, and so I just want to make sure when I refer back to the video on the evening in my notes that I want to make sure that,
I'm not exactly sure how it was
reconciling.
answered, but I remember when Michelle answered, well, it was in the building. Yeah, it was in the building, but it wasn't in the central office.
okay.
It
So-
wasn't until all this happened that all the binders were updated and put where they were supposed to, because then DLS expected there to be a binder in the central office.
Okay, so if I
Until
can
then, we
ask,
didn't have the documents.
right, okay, so if I can ask a different question maybe that maybe is more direct. Did you ever look at the report yourself in 2017?
No.
You did not? Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
The other question I had was about the stabilization fund that was referenced, that was being used for special education.
$29,000?
Yes, and it was indicated that it was covering expenses related to special education.
Replacement of.
Right,
Right.
that were lost, OT, some OT items. I was wondering if we can get, I know we talked about this in our sped meeting, but I think a lot of people are quite interested to understand what specific sped items totaled to be that are being attributed to that fund.
I think
That's
that-
something that could be posted, possibly?
Materials?
We just have to ask our finance director to put that together. I don't know.
Because
I'm sure it could be posted, or if you want it emailed to you, however you want it. the
yeah, if you
information.
can email to me, I certainly can disseminate it to people who've asked about it. That's fine. Because I think you primarily mentioned about OT, and I don't know if that $29,000 worth of OT were lost. I'm not sure, though. So it'd be good to get those
Yep.
amounts.
It may not be totally OT, so we'll.
It could have been
we'll find it out.
materials,
But it
special ed
was special,
materials.
it was
Yeah, well-
special ed, because it has to be spent on sped
Right.
materials, or, yeah. so,
Okay,
Okay.
all right. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had just a quick question. When you say the central office, where the binders are, do you mean here, or do you mean at Green Meadow, at Fowler, at
So
like
the-
their main offices?
Yes, now that we're working with DLS, we understand there should be a binder in every main office as well as the central office.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And in the past, my understanding was that they were in the custodian's office, not in the main office. And, you know, that Colleen and I never received them, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Katie.
Hi, Katie Krasinski. Just wanted to clarify, we were told the abatement was going to stop. Just want to clarify, it's April 3rd for Welcome to K-Night. It's when the kindergarten presents to the incoming
Is that what
Then
the-
parents.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no,
Just
I
a
know dates are
clarification.
confusing, so it's April 3rd and April 10th is the open house.
Perfect.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Katie.
you very much.
Thank you.
Jessica Crafting. I have a kid who's going to be in 2020. So just kind of, I know we've all known the roof's been leaking forever. Kind of listening to Kevin's comment about like what we wrote in the grant, and that we're doing this very expensive abatement, and then we're replacing all the ceiling tiles, right? And then we're putting all our nice new stuff, the teacher stuff, back in that wing. And then what if we have a giant rainstorm and it rains again? And we have giant floods again, and we just put this huge investment in. I know we don't have enough money right now for the roof or whatever, but what is, maybe you've answered this before and I somehow missed it, but what is your plan for protecting your investment?
Yeah, so I know that the capital planning committee, which includes our finance director and a bunch of other people on the town side, put aside $100,000 to continue to repair the roof if there becomes a problem.
Is $100,000 enough to patch that entire 1950s section in a satisfactory way?
The
I mean-
information came from the facilities
facilities
manager,
department.
so we're basing it on his expertise.
Okay, I mean, I just,
Yeah.
the phrase throwing good money after bad seems like a,
Absolutely.
so I just think especially with, the fluctuating weather of it going hot, cold, crazy rain we've been having, I think you might want to come up with another plan. I don't know.
Thank you.
I do think that one of the things that we've been talking about is having, as things settle down, there have been different considerations and questions that have come up looking at kind of longer term, and I think that's distinctly one thing a little later in the agenda is the GM Future Committee, and I think those are important questions for them to consider. And then we were also talking about potentially having a public forum, just a discussion night once there is more understanding, and once things have stabilized enough so that we can talk about curriculum moving forward to a Green Meadow and understanding of that, and have more conversation with the community about that, so that it can be, people can ask questions and get informed, because those are important pieces as well.
Hi, Condito. I'm the occupational therapist in the district. I'm also the vice president for the MEA, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. I can speak to the SPED materials a little bit. It is not just OT or PT materials, though we do distribute those into the pre-K and the K classroom, so some of that is what needs to be replaced. But there is also a specialized classroom in there, and all the materials in that classroom were lost, and so that's why those would come under a SPED budget. So I thought I would clarify that for you. One of the things that's come about with all of this air quality and now asbestos considerations, and it has been going on for a long time, and I think we've talked about it for a long time, is that the district seems to be very reactive as far as what's going on in the building, and it's when there's a leak, then we try to deal with it, and when there's a mold smell, or when there's something happens, then we try to deal with it. And what the MEA is asking for is for there to be a little bit more proactive work done at that building. We've now had the abatement, or will have had the abatement. We have the ceilings open, and regardless of whether there is a public health hazard, there are hazards to people's health. And we are asking that that be looked into and dealt with appropriately, and that we be involved in the plans, hear about the plans ahead of time, not just after the fact. So before you put the ceiling up, you make sure you clean all those areas where there has been the potential for mold, or may actually be mold. You can't see it, but clean it correctly now while you can, and it's easy to do, and not wait for somebody else to get sick again. And that's part of what needs to be looked at as far as reallocating space in that building, is you have people that no matter how well you clean that room, they may not ever be able to go back into it because their system is so disrupted. That the old saying, the canary in the coal mine, they're going to be the first one to let you know that the air's gone bad. Well, these people are the first ones that can tell you there's a problem, and no one else may have a problem in that room, but they will. So either you clean it so that they can be in those rooms, or you do the best you can, and then let's reallocate rooms because their health is very important. And I feel like, I'm sorry, but it feels to them like they're being dismissed because there's no public health hazard. But we know there's a difference between what the DPH considers a public health hazard and what is a hazard to the general community and more so to specific people. And I think that has to be a consideration. These are your employees, whether or not you have a public health hazard, you have a health hazard to those employees.
And I think, and I just want to thank you, Karen, because you were in attendance at that kindergarten meeting, and you brought that up. I forgot to add that you would like to be part of the solution.
Yes.
So, thank you.
So, Bob, related to that, the company that's coming in to do the abatement, I mean, I remember being in one section when they had taken down the ceiling, and I was told at the time, what's up there is going to be cleaner than the day that we open this building. So, I mean, obviously, you just said that off the cuff, but, I mean, what is the expectation?
I did know that the environmental consultant not only consults us with asbestos, but he can consult us regarding mold.
Right.
And he did say that was a possibility. And when we talked to Karen, she mentioned that maybe an enzyme scrub. I know.
Which is part of what we're doing.
Michelle well, I'm not sure if it was, but we can look into it. And Michelle had said she wanted to clean everything thoroughly as part of the process. So it's something that we can look at. And actually, I mean, again, this can all go to the Green Meadow Futures. That's why we put together this committee, so that they can be part of that decision-making process.
Yeah, and we'll just need to make sure that we have ways that we're looping in like they're able to discuss with, so there's the teachers or other representatives are able to have those conversations beforehand too. And that's one of the things when we get to that agenda item, we're going to make sure to talk about that more too.
And if we have learned anything, it's to be proactive versus reactive, and that's why we're starting the same committee at the Fowler, which is now 20 years old, and even the high school, which is, 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, it's hard to
just
imagine,
so that
5
we
years.
can, my thought from this whole thing is that from now on, we're going to put the money out there to the townspeople and say, do you want to pay for this or not? And because for too long, it just seems as though people with their best interests in mind are cautious of people's pocketbooks and that, and sometimes we don't necessarily do what we should put it to the public and just say, what do you want us to do? It's not for us to make that decision, but thank you.
Hi, Leslie Knight. I have kids in kindergarten and 5th grade. I just want to echo support for being proactive with our facilities, so I'm glad to hear that we're doing that. The question that I have that I hope that I hear answered tonight, I know we'll get to the fiscal year 20 budget later on the agenda. I'm curious to know more about the process of how we arrived at the things that we are going to have to cut for next year. I mean, nobody ever wants to see cuts being made. Unfortunately, there's just a difference, right, between our level of services funding and what the town is allocating to the school department. So I hope that we'll also, I mean, I understand the cuts that are being made, and that's what we have to do, and that's the reality, unfortunately, but I'm curious to know the process behind that, who had that input, and how we arrived at the things that we are going to have to cut for next year. So I hope we'll hear that tonight.
Do that now or do it?
Yeah, well, very quickly, normally in the past, we have the Maynard Leadership Team, which includes all the administrators, give input as to what things, I know the Fowler staff, the administrators were great, and they said we were actually, through attrition, we've had some students move out. We have 2 paraprofessionals who, we don't need, we've lost the kids that they were working with, so we could reduce one. So it's a process that the leadership team puts together for the school committee. So that's the answer.
You all set?
Just to mention that when we get to that agenda item, we'll also, you can give a little more context.
Yeah, I will definitely.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Jen Kranek. So as I've established, I think that my key concern within the district is basically always going to be special ed. So I'd like to start with just a little bit of math that I did. At the FinCom meeting, it seemed to be saying that you were saying that we have right now, it's $2.05 million in out-of-district placements. Is that the number?
Mm-hmm. I think that's what I remembered.
And that there are 43 students outplaced? Is that also the number?
I'm not positive.
That sounds high.
I'm not going to know myself right now.
Keep talking more.
Okay, well, the number that I heard was 43, and I just wanted to verify that that was out-of-district placements. And if 43 is high, then that makes my math here even more impressive. Because what I did is I divided 2.05 million by 43.
which means the district's paying $47,674 per student to be placed out. And what you took out of the budget was $16,000 for a paraprofessional position that's not filled right now, I understand that. But if even just one student could be pulled back into district and given the support that they need with a one-to-one paraprofessional, then that would be bringing $31,674 back into district just with that one student. Now, if you could get multiple students, that number obviously keeps growing. And if 43 is a higher number of out-of-place district students, then the amount of money we'd be bringing back in, the difference between the $16K and whatever we're paying per student. So again, as a special ed mom, I can tell you that I speak to a lot of other special ed parents, and I'm in a very, very great situation with my son's IEP. For years, he was placed at a 2-to-1 ratio, so that means that he had one paraprofessional with him and one other student with him. Then for a year, he had 3-to-1, which that means that there's one paraprofessional to 3 students. And that year, he floundered a bit. So I finally pulled back and I said, listen, I'm not going to accept anything less than a 1-to-1 paraprofessional. This year, I'd like to brag, he has a 100 in science. Thank you very much, with his 1-to-1 paraprofessional. So I think, thank you. And that's the first time that he's succeeded this much in school. So I think that stands. I doubt that he's the only case study that having this full support of a 1-to-1 paraprofessional is allowing him to have the tools that he needs to succeed. So I'm wondering how many of these outplaced students were never given the chance to have a 1-to-1 paraprofessional. And I mean, even if you look at that as $16,000 is really not what I'd consider a living wage in Massachusetts. So go ahead and bump that up to $32,000 a year, double it. You're still making money back into the district by not having these kids outplaced. So I'm really curious as to how much conversation you guys have in the budget planning strategy with special ed and with, with the paraprofessional union to see where they felt that they could be better utilized. Was there any sort of conversation like that before you just said, okay, we're just gonna leave this paraprofessional position open and we're not gonna fill it?
So I can speak to a number of the issues, but I don't want to get ahead of us, but since the conversations come up. So one of the pieces actually 2 of the pieces that you'll see is that we increased the occupational therapist to a 0.7 to reduce consultant costs. So that is $22,000, $23,000 basically. So that's to help by having a person on staff versus having a consultant come in.
But that's not a paraprofessional. That's a teacher
No, but I'm
where
just
somebody
talking
gets
about
pulled out.
I'm talking about the whole program. So then another piece that we're doing is we're going to add 2 rooms, 2 case collaborative rooms to Fowler to so one of the programs that we are involved in is the CASE collaborative, where there are certain students that have specific needs, and we get together, and there may be one in Maynard, there may be one in Acton, there may be one in Boxborough. So we have those students all go to one school, it may not be Maynard, with the right staff. And that way, we're helping the students the best we can, and we're also cutting costs, making it as efficient as possible. We've also added the OASIS program up at the high school this year, which is bringing students back that have the social and emotional problems that, reintroducing them to Maynard. We also created the dyslexia program this year. So we are trying on a big scale to do exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I'll add, because you want your question, which is...
the specific
You've got the big
paraprofessional.
picture, which is true, and I appreciate that, because we do look as a school committee, you work with the Director of Student Services, and she's come in and done presentations on programs to try and bring students back. As far as individual paraprofessional support, those are decisions that are made in IEP teams, so it's really not part of the school committee's process, and they're team decisions. So the fact that we didn't have enough students for the schedules of staff we have is why we reduced that, not because we weren't trying to bring people back.
Well, when you say that there weren't enough students, I mean, I know, having seen my son go through periods where his typically assigned paraprofessional has been out, and other parents where their paraprofessionals have been out, that they haven't been able to get coverage. So I mean, even on a substitute basis, we don't have enough aides.
Well,
the-
we don't have enough substitutes for teachers either. So that's a problem that a lot of districts have. We're not alone in that. But we really can't talk about individual student needs and assignments and the number of paraprofessionals per student, because those are individual special needs that we really can't talk about. But we can tell you that it goes through a process, part of the IEP team process. And, so that's how it's decided whether the student needs a paraprofessional full-time or part-time during the day. Those are the team
No, well,
decisions.
having been through it, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that that's how the process works. I also know that I was put under a lot of pressure to cut back on my son's coverage, which is how I wound up with the 3-to-1, where my son floundered that year. And that's not a story that is uncommon. I know a lot of parents that have started out with ratios and now have no ratios, because then it makes it easier to have one paraprofessional in a class with 8 special needs kids. And that's not an effective use. So again, that's sort of setting up the foundation that maybe these kids that didn't have, I don't want to say parents that weren't as savvy to say, no, I need this 1-to-1, but that's sort of the case of what happens. But if these kids who were in classrooms with like an 8-to-1 ratio, some of those kids are the kids that wind up being pulled out of district the next year. So it's sort of like.
But I think that's a generalization, and I don't know that to be a fact. And also, the goal for all students in special ed is to get them to independence, have less support. That's just, that's the
No, I
federal
understand
goal,
that
so-
too, but it's just, again, I think I'm just sort of not calling you guys out alone on this, but calling the district out alone on this, and the special education team chairs on this, saying that if we started with the support and weren't constantly trying to pull back, then the out-of-district placements might not be as high, and then you'd be able to save this money like this. But so then, my next question about the budget was, there's no administrative cuts on the budget. Do you guys ever consider administrative cuts, budget cuts? I mean, your raise, Dr. Girardi, is about $6,000 this year, and you had a double vote of no confidence. So I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's a consideration. I mean, so as a school committee?
So as a
Do you
school
think
committee, I think I emailed you back and said that 2 years ago that when we focused only on administration and where to cut from the administration. So it is always on the table. So I imagine when you talk about budget in context, we can talk more about the rationale for all of that in terms of what ended up being decided versus. So we're more than happy to, that's always considered, and when we talk about the context of all the budget cuts, when we get to that item, we'll talk more about that too.
Okay, and then away from the budget, then I just wanted a question about the GM Future Committee. I had gotten an email saying that there were going to be 3 future committee members chosen per school committee member. Is that 3 per, so it's going to be 9 people, or it's going to be 15 people on the committee?
So the number is going to be, we'll get to that item and we'll talk more about that too, but we're
It's going to be 9.
going to be appointing some ourselves, and Dawn did send in the people that she would appoint, and then we can let the committee appoint more. So we'll talk about that process a little more when we get to that agenda item
Okay,
too.
all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
So what's the status on the appeal process of the fines?
What's your name? Just state your name,
Brian
please.
Sanders.
Thank you.
The appeal process.
The appeal of the citations?
Yes. You said at the FinCon that you should know by Thursday, Friday. Have you heard anything yet?
We haven't heard details yet, but we should know something soon.
And what happens when it does get denied? What is your next step with it?
We'll have to see when it happens,
We'll have
right?
to see when it happens, what
Yeah.
the next steps are.
All right. Question.
But I do appreciate the question because it will have to be considered one way or the other.
Hi, Natasha Rivera. So the a little bit was brought up about determining the budget and how do you determine the strategy behind what cuts and how they're made. And I just wanted to make a comment, it's not really a question. Being on the Green Meadow School Council, and I know speaking with other parents who have been on it, in other schools, teachers who are on it, these are very underutilized collaborative meetings, groups. Last year at Green Meadow, I was the only parent left on it because all the other parents really pretty much quit, thought it was a waste of time. And, as a community, we don't have a lot of collaborative opportunities here. One of the, mandates of the school council is providing budget recommendations specific to the school. And I can tell you that the leadership at the schools are not given information to even work with us at the school level to have those decisive actions even discussed regularly. I know that myself, there's a couple other parents for the Green Meadow, we regularly come to these meetings, we go to budget meetings. We had more knowledge to bring to the committee or to the council than the leadership did. And that speaks really poor of the fact that we are bringing it, which I was very happy to do, and as the other parents who were participants, but that really should be coming internally down. We knew about the $100,000 well before they did, and we could have had some really healthy conversations had they been prepared a little bit. Also, we were asking teachers thinking of wish list things at some point because the expectation was that could be maybe asking for technology or SPED support, and ultimately that wasn't the case. So it really drives the conversation a lot, but they're very underutilized. I mean, I would like to see, the school councils actually, I've never seen a school committee member go to one of them, just as a heads up. It'd be nice.
I was on school councils for 12 years while my son was there, so I know, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't see active school committee members who sit on, because they are public meetings, to hear what the collaborative conversations that are happening there. We don't have a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So I really would like to see more tapped into having more robust expectation from these school councils. Maybe they can report back here to the school committee directly, quarterly, possibly. I don't know. Anyway, just a little feedback there.
Can I do, before you go on, Natasha?
Yeah.
So, Bob, you said it was the leadership.
Mhm.
So that's all principals?
Yeah.
Right. So I had a
They
meeting.
also have their building budgets that
Right.
they do for Michelle,
Yep.
so they know exactly where
Right.
all the money's spent, so.
Right. So, not sure.
Well, so there's clearly a breakdown, okay? Because I know that we had a meeting March 12th for the Green Meadow School Council, and I know that March 11th, that Monday, the leadership, I think all school leadership were just asked at that meeting before to say, okay, we need to brainstorm on what we're going to cut for the district. And that was their feedback, and it wasn't a collaborative, it didn't involve any of the school council input at all. So mine was piss poor. I just think it could have been better. All right. Anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse.
I'm really sorry that is happening, because I know that when I was on the Green Meadow, the first year that I was on the Green Meadow School Council, we did go through what we wanted for cuts.
It happened twice.
And that was under Donna. But then the next year, we didn't. And and Donna was not in charge. And so there was definitely that breakdown. And so I totally get what you're saying. That's
And
really
a lot of parents
disappointing.
quit last year as well. So, it was, anyway. It was, and I know that speaking with members from other school councils at other schools, they don't really discuss the budget at all. So I don't think this is unique to Green Meadow. But it is, again, highlights the upper leadership expectations or trickle down of, hey, give them timely information so that they have the chance to collaborate with the folks that they're supposed to collaborate with. That's kind of what transparency is. So, and if that's not happening, I think there need to be some conversations about how we can make that happen. The other question I had was relating to the FinCom meeting that was brought up the Green Meadow long-term plan. There was a lot of back and forth about you keep Green Meadow, build a new school, and the FinCom seemed pretty cautiously concerned that a new school in maybe even the next 6 years is not on the radar. And so with that in mind, looking at our maintenance budget for what we're doing, I think might need some tweaking, because if our plan is that our school needs to be in a healthy condition, this patch and pray model that has been instituted for the roof, for any maintenance, when we go to town, ask every year to ask for money, clearly it's not enough. And I'm curious to understand who is driving that recommendation for maintenance repairs. Is it the DPW? Is it a collaborative effort? Is it you, Dr. Girardi? I'm just not clear on where those numbers get budgeted and who determines that.
So I know that our finance director and the DPW director work together on the capital planning committee to discuss the maintenance funding, and both of them have different budgets for different maintenance.
Okay. So for the school, so I guess if we look back historically on what we've needed to do for repairs, and I know with the new dude system, maybe that'll help kind of create.
School dude.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that will help create some historical information to know exactly what the repairs are. But I'm just wondering if now is a really good time to reflect back on increasing, like, okay, what we've been doing is not enough.
So the GM, when we get to that
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
the GM Future Committee,
That's what one of their.
and part of the charge is going to be, while we're waiting,
Right.
how do we ensure that this building is going to continue to last and work for us, and that we have what we need for that to happen?
Okay.
And was there something else?
No, I was going to say, I thought Ken brought up a good point the other night, which was there's a good likelihood that we might keep the Green Meadow building as, I was thinking,
Reuse
Great
it.
Boys and Girls Club, Senior
Right.
Center, Community Center, that
A
kind
lot
of
of
thing.
possibilities, right.
So that's
Let's
a
not
good-
wait till it fails.
Exactly. So that's a
I
good
think-
reason to maintain it.
Right.
And some of this will be also then trying to engage us in part of the larger town conversation, because at FinCom, it was also clear that even though it's been on the capital plan, it was kind of like, almost seemed like it was like a hope and a prayer, like a Hail Mary pass of putting it on the
Right,
plan.
it seemed like there's two, exactly.
Yeah.
So the FinCom's here, and the school committee was here, like, okay, we have this marker, and it's like, okay, what's up with that marker?
So this is definitely why it'll be really good to get that going and
Okay.
involve people in various ways to be able to help those conversations happen.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Cartoname. I'm sorry I lost my voice.
Oh.
I feel like there's a topic that we keep overlooking, and that is mold. Dawn's not here tonight, but I talked to her 4 weeks ago about the issues at Green Meadow, and we talked about a retest. She said she was going to get all of you school committee members relevant information to review it. Did she do that?
I think that she sent us something via email.
Yeah.
But
The other thing I think also is, again, I think the Green Meadow Future Club the Green Meadow Future
Future Committee.
Committee, thank you. I don't know what your charge is, but I think that's part of it. I could be wrong.
air
So,
quality,
air quality,
maintenance.
maintenance planning. I know, Bethlen, you shared with us documents on air quality plans that continue on and on for schools, and I think you'll probably share that with the committee as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's on my notes.
I forget the acronym again, but there's one state-level department that we're going to be in a 6-month.
Well, the DLS will be
Is that
coming
what
in
it
to
is?
to
Okay,
measure
yeah.
the asbestos
Every
issue.
okay.
3, 6, it'll end up being, in the first year, I think it's 3, 6, and then.
Okay.
But that's not
Okay,
the
but
mold.
that's
But
for
that's not the
asbestos?
mold.
Okay, I thought
Yeah.
that was air quality. Okay.
I know you keep talking about the Green Meadow Committee, but that isn't established yet, and so I hope you guys would take on all this responsibility, because it's going to get them, they need time to start their committee and everything, so this is why I'm bringing it to you. That being said, the statement of concern versus evidence leads us to believe that none of you think that there is an issue, because you have spent 25 on purifiers, and 6 teachers are out, 2 on medical leave, and 4 that have recently left. We talk about transparency. Why didn't anybody get an email besides the actual class? And the
I'm
teachers
sorry,
that-
I don't know what you're talking about. So can you
So
say it again?
2 teachers left on medical leave. I'm sure Dr. Girardi knows this, and 4 other teachers have left Green Meadow.
Yeah.
There's called HIPAA, we're not allowed to talk about our employees' medical.
Okay, so 6 teachers left. How about we leave it like that, okay?
Yep.
But these teachers, we didn't get an email from the principal saying, this teacher left, this teacher left, this teacher left, music left, speech therapist, a special ed teacher, a K assistant, and 2 other teachers. We never got emails saying that all these teachers left. That impacts our kids. It's not the teacher's responsibility to send an email to her class, but she did. Not only to her class, but her coworkers as well.
Yeah.
So we talk about transparency, there's still, it's still not there.
Communication. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can, yes, 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 but it's, how many
I'm
times do we
sorry,
have to keep
I can't be the
bringing
one to
it
do
up?
the communication.
I understand that,
I'm trying
but-
to tell you that I'm totally, I totally
Understand.
hear what you're saying, and it's an important thing for us to
So
continue
can,
to try to make sure it's
Girardi
happening.
follow up on that, since he can send an email and his principals can send emails regarding that information, or it can be posted online? I think that's
I think
important
that's a
information.
very good point, that we make sure, even now, you think it's still useful to be able to do that at this point?
We can look into why
Yeah,
that wasn't
okay.
done.
Well, I don't know when
But
it
we can't
happened.
talk about health concerns. All we
I'm
can
sorry,
say-
I didn't mean to offend you, I just didn't know when it happened, so I wasn't sure that it was useful at this point to do that, because sometimes it's timely communication. If, I can totally get that it would actually be useful to be able to send it out now. I think that's an
Yeah,
important
I'm
thing
surprised.
to
I
do.
thought the principals do notify parents when a teacher leaves, not that
Nope.
why they're leaving.
It doesn't necessarily happen,
Okay,
Bob.
I can look
We need
into
to
it.
make sure that it does.
Yep.
Thank you.
Does it make sense to have a structural engineer come in and assess the entire building? And also, doesn't it make sense to have the air tested again to make sure cleaning efforts are actually working? Anybody?
I don't know the answer to that, because I'm not an expert, so that's something that we can bring back, those questions back, to make sure that we understand the standards, the procedures, the things to make sure that the
So
air is
Girardi, are you
clean.
gonna retest the school after all the cleaning is done?
So I think we're going to be talking about this as far as what the charge of the Green Meadow Future Committee, because I think that
But we
There
don't
are
have
people
that
who have
committee right
experts.
now.
No, but we will-
And it's not gonna,
we will
they're
tonight.
not gonna jump into it, and
Julie, yes,
everything's
they are
gonna
going
be
to jump
perfect.
into it.
Yeah.
So I'm telling
And
you that,
I think it's 54 air purifiers that should be
have already been
arriving.
ordered. Yeah, the school committee
like
approved
any
that.
minute now,
And they should be
right?
arriving anytime now, yeah.
So that'll
Okay.
be pretty much
could you do
loose.
me a favor? Could you write down an email, because I'm trying to follow
I will
everything
send
that
you
you're
this
asking
whole
for.
entire
Okay.
thing of questions.
I appreciate that.
We know that there's no standard to what level is dangerous, but the test is made to indicate indoor mold growth and what types are present. That being said, what is the update on the air purifiers? Are they going into all classrooms, including library, art, everything?
Yes.
Every single classroom is getting an air purifier. And when will they be here?
Any minute. They're,
At the FinCom meeting, it was
Hadn't they already
reported
been
that they were
shipped?
on a pallet being
Right.
shipped here, so
Yeah,
we've been
they
waiting for
should
them to
be.
come.
Okay, so if we spent a lot of money on purifiers and after the cleaning is done, I really strongly suggest that we check the air again, especially because teachers are leaving on medical leave and there's other teachers in the district leaving as well.
Okay, so is that, you want to make sure, you're requesting, your consideration is testing the air again, that's your
Yes.
consideration. Is there anything else that you have to ask us?
I have a lot of questions.
Okay, so.
I just have a few more.
Okay, go ahead.
Have you tested the wood for mold?
I can't answer that either at this, like, some of these questions are things that we would need to be able to go back and look at distinct, detailed reports to just make sure
So
what the, if you want to, if that's a question that you could email, and we can make sure that we get you the answer.
So what I can say is the DPH does moisture tests. They have a whole bunch of tests they do. There's been other tests that have been done. But that has been done through the facilities department. That is the agency that we work with. And so we don't know the specifics of those questions you're asking, but the department, our facilities department has been getting the input and providing it to the school committee and myself as far as what we need to do, so.
Okay. If teachers or a child have a note from their doctor saying they are sick due to mold exposure, do you expect them to return to the preschool kindergarten wing?
think that would be a very important thing for us to bring up with the
Yeah.
future.
Right.
Any other questions?
There's no answer.
Well, we're not going to be able to answer that right now for you. I mean, this is something that we
have
have to
figure
be able
out.
to take up and talk through.
I've had these conversations with our staff, and we're working on them.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you bringing them up, because these are important things to think through,
Right.
and they help come up with the plan moving forward.
Out of curiosity, did you ensign wash the pre-K K wing? Or are you planning on to it?
Okay, so that's another question that we can find out the answer.
I think that's,
Talk through.
at least it's one of the line items, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just reading through my questions. There was a teacher survey sent throughout the 3 schools. Does anyone know when the actual data from the survey will be available?
When was that survey?
I can't tell you the exact date. And can we divide that survey? I'm sure Dr. Girardi can speak to this. And can we divide that survey up by schools? Because I'm sure the high school teachers will have a different say than the Green Meadow teachers. And I think that's really important, especially with everything going on.
We can look into it.
I'm not sure which survey you're referring
You
to.
can, he knows.
No,
Did you both?
actually, I think
Well, you
our
guys
assistant
would have both
superintendent
gotten.
sent
In any
it, so I'm
case-
not aware of it, so.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we are getting to the point where there are still more people that want to speak.
Sure, I'll
We're
give
going to
my
need to
questions to
continue with
someone
our, Julia, do you want to make sure, Julie?
Yep.
I do want to make sure that you send the rest of your questions, because I do want to make sure that we are able to pass them along to the right places so that they can get addressed. Okay.
Heather Monero, quick question about the air purifiers. You said that you have 54 of them coming. We were told, and teachers were told, when it's hot in the summer, that the electric panel cannot handle some of their air, their ACs. How is the electric panel in Green Meadow going to handle 54 air purifiers?
My understanding is that they don't use very much electricity. That's what we were told by the DPW.
So do you know prior to spending $25,000 whether or not they're going to be able to be functioning?
My understanding is our facilities department said that they would be, yes. That's what the facilities department said.
Okay. Number 10. Summer program. Can we move extended school year and Excel summer camp to Fowler?
We can look at it.
Where are the, and this may have been answered before, but I apologize. The action items required by DLS, has that been posted yet? DLS, as in addition to the fines, they also had action items that you were supposed to post by a certain date. Have those been posted?
We can look at it. I don't know.
Does anybody know any of the answers to the questions? I thought this was your job.
Look, I don't want to, we're trying to have.
But this is your
I know,
transparency.
look, I do understand your
But there's
frustration.
a different tone too, from the meeting where you guys were crying and saying you're sorry to the FinCom meeting, and now, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I feel like it's backpedaling again into your cocoon of non-disclosure and non-transparency.
No, it's just that I don't know the answers.
know,
That's
yeah.
not our job to know all these answers. Honestly, the job that we need to be able to do is to help find the answers and get it taken care of
But
for you.
none of the answers are ever found and
And what I'm going to
disclosed.
tell you right now is that what I'm trying to do is to make sure that we get those taken care of and do that respectfully, and I apologize that you don't feel that
And
way.
I do know the action items were addressed, so we'll find out if they were posted on, my assumption is they're posted on the Green Meadow Future website. That's where we're posting everything, but I'll find out.
And the other thing that we're trying to do is develop some structures that are going to really help us to be able to move forward and get things taken care of so this doesn't happen again, and that we make sure that people are comfortable being in the building. And those
So-
are very important things. And I think a lot of your questions, the root of your questions relate to that. And so we're committed to that, and that's part of the conversation for the rest of the agenda. So I feel like if you have questions that relate to those things, then you can send them to us and we can make sure that we get the answers.
Is mold going to be an agenda item as follow-up once you get all these answers to everyone's questions?
So the thing, yeah, we can absolutely figure out the best way if what we need to do is be able to have further discussion around that in particular. So we're going to be, having creating, I know people feel like we're saying this again and again, but we're trying to move things forward and move them quickly, and part of that is creating this committee tonight, which we're going to do in a little bit, and asking those people to come together, and their first charge is to start looking at some of these things and trying to figure out and include the right people to be able to make sure that there's a level of comfort and that things are getting addressed so that people feel comfortable in that building and we have a plan moving forward.
I guess I'm just frustrated that this is not a new issue, and the Green Meadow Future Committee, if I'm not mistaken, was at the request of the community. So unless the community holds, people's feet to the fire, nothing gets done. So, I mean, anyway,
We are all the community, though. That's the thing. Like, we're part of the community, too.
Okay, let's just agree to disagree on some things. Is Tim Goulding still the specialist for the asbestos? Is he the guy?
He's the designated person.
Where has he been during all of this?
He's been working at
He's been
fixing the
working.
problems, yes.
Heather, how many other questions do you have?
I will turn my time over.
You're welcome to email further if you want, if there's anything priority that you wanted to say. Okay.
I was going to say, let Ann talk before.
And I apologize. I feel like I got a little heated there, and I didn't mean to do that, so I apologize for that.
Hi, switching gears again. So in the interim, I had presented the number of 43 students, which is what I thought you guys had said, and I got confirmation from somebody not here that there's actually 29 students out of district. So again, just to do some quick math. So now that's 29 students, so that means that we're spending $70,689 per student for an out-of-district placement. So if you just get one student back with a one-to-one paraprofessional with that $16,000 a year, that's a gain of $54,689. Now looking at this, the target reduction is $100,000. So if there's any way that you guys could try and work with the parents, work with the out-district placements, and get 2 students back, that more than covers your $100,000. So, and also another issue that was asked of me, you had said that there aren't enough substitutes. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand when you say that there's not enough substitutes. I get it's hard to hire people, but when there aren't enough substitutes, then that leaves the district in violation of IEPs, which is, that's a law. It's not just a suggestion, it's a law. It's not a recommendation, it's a requirement. So when that happens and when a parent questions the violation, then that in turn, you guys go right to lawyers. So also having the proper coverage, having the proper staff would avoid a lot of lawyers' fees, which are not, lawyers' fees are not included in this target reduction, and I kind of feel like it should be. So, just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi, Ann Duddy.
Hi,
Green Meadow teacher, parent of one left in the district, and the union rep of Green Meadow. My question is regarding the fines and the citations. Somebody had brought to my attention that they were in of the understanding that the law was written as such that the fines that you are fined stay within district to help pay for the cost, and that the money would have to be allocated to fixing the problems.
So we really can't comment now on that. We're hoping to get, as like the gentleman said, we're hoping to get information and then we can share that.
Okay.
So we can't comment now because it's in the middle of it.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is the website.
That's a good point.
And is that a PR firm that is doing that? And if so, what is the cost of that?
It's the town's public relations
So the
media
district
specialist.
doesn't have to pay anything?
The district
towards
does pay.
Do we know how much that is?
I'm not certain.
Okay, that's just my frugal side.
Yep, yep.
But we pay anyway, right, regardless of, it's not just for this situation, don't we pay a proportionate share of?
I think in the
PR guy.
past, whenever we've used the
Right.
media relations specialist, we would pay our portion, the
Okay.
town pays it. I think there was a desire for increased communication, especially around Green Meadow and creating a Green Meadow Future Committee, and so that's why the commitment was made that for now, that probably needs to be there to increase the transparency in the communication.
Hi, Ann Alexopoulos. I have a daughter, and then 2 daughters at home. I have a daughter at Green Meadow and 2 on the way. I have a couple questions. One is, you answered my question about the air purifiers, so they should be on their way. The Green Meadow teachers, someone brought it to your attention earlier. I heard today that the gym teacher is now leaving, or has left, Mr. Wood, and we weren't notified by that. I was notified by my child, which again, like, this is not the first time that someone has
Right.
said, and also a kindergarten aide that my child had previously has left, and I was notified again by my child. So the communication, everyone keeps on saying, we're gonna increase this communication, and I feel like I've been very patient, but I feel like there hasn't been any increase in what I know less from my child. And, you know, I'm a therapist. Someone's baseline is 20%. My goal is to get them to 80%. I feel like we haven't made any progress to reach our goals. Like, do you understand where I'm coming from? How are we going to how are we going to get ourselves to 80%, which is satisfactory? And I'm not even asking for 100%. Like, I want to be able to go home and know what my child's going to say at the dinner table instead of like prep them. You know, she's 6. Why can't I say like, oh, you know, you're going to have a new gym teacher and it's going to be okay. We'll love the new one. Now she's going to come to me and say, my gym teacher left. I'm scared. What if someone comes and I can't prep my child? And this is a typical developing child. So like if a child was, you know, on the spectrum or had other needs, we prep these kids using visuals. How are you supposed to do that at home if you don't know what's happening at school?
I'll be talking to the principals. I was surprised to find that out tonight. I thought they were notifying you, so I'm sorry.
Okay. And so like, is there going to be like a plan? So like if the art teacher leaves, just like pulling one out of there, that will get notified and hopefully, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, and it might be that, Bob, you have to make sure that you're getting those so you can see that that's happening.
Yep.
Because as a parent, like, we've been notified about the asbestos, the mold, and then the asbestos, and now we've had like 6 teachers leave.
Yeah, that's something you need to know.
There needs to be, like, within a certain time frame.
Within a certain amount of
You know,
time, which
if
is why
somebody,
I
if, you
asked
know,
a stupid question.
right, you know, similar to what happened here in Fowler the other day, where the nurse was out. I got a call right out, you know, at home saying that the nurse was out. So it was that day. You know, we need everybody to get that information.
In all the buildings.
Right, in all buildings, because I know that there was also an issue with the gym teacher at the high school. So, and I wasn't notified about that either. So, you know, it has to happen, and it has to happen, you know, within a certain, as soon as the principal finds out that somebody's not going to be there, especially if they leave, they have to let the parents know.
Yeah,
And what are we doing to retain our teachers? One of the things that our parents love, you all have kids in the district, are how great our teachers are. What are we doing now with all these things going on with Green Meadow to retain our teachers? I know what the community's doing, because we've been trying to, you know, get materials and we all voted for the magnesium to get them to stock the fridge. But what are we doing as a district to retain those teachers, to keep things okay for our kids now that they're going through all these changes at Green Meadow?
We haven't put anything together yet. It's something
Okay.
that's on our radar, although when we talked about retention rates, our retention rates are similar to other districts.
But you're
if
talking more
not
about
better.
right now.
You're talking about
But right now,
I'm
there's,
talking-
yeah,
well,
right
But like,
now.
if you do our retention rates from this year compared to like the last 10 years, you can't tell me they're the same, right? There has to be people.
I would imagine that
Yeah.
they'd be, yeah, I would imagine.
Right, they're not.
Extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, and I understand things are hard because of everything going on, but that's when we should be banding together, not only to support our teachers, our administration too, our district, we should support our district, everyone. And another thing I have, hold on. This school committee for Green Meadow, the committee that's being put, that we're gonna talk about today, everything is getting thrown, like the committee, to think of before the committee, because when are they gonna close that ceiling? It's gonna be April 5th, right? The committee is not gonna be, when is the, April 13th?
So they're going to take down the ceilings, but they're not going to put them up until later. So that's why the project's going to go into the summer.
Okay.
So there will be some time for the committee to deliberate on what needs to get done.
I agree, like the larger point, like there are things that people are bringing up, like being able to consider what are the things that can actually be looked at. Like we want this to get going right away because it's urgent for the more immediate things that we need to consider. But there's things that in the timeline, like I've been asking and trying to dig to find out what the timeline is to be able to consider. Does this make sense that we can do this through this committee? Do we need to have some other group that's able to look at some of the air quality before that? That's an important piece to
And I
make sure
think the
happens.
idea is, this committee isn't magic, right? And in life, we need money for everything. And I think it comes down to the fact that as a town, we're struggling financially. So developing this committee, it's not going to give us magical money.
No, but they get to insert themselves in the conversation around that and start having it be a part of the town conversation in a way that it hasn't been to this point.
Okay.
And while we're waiting for a long-term plan to be able to bring their priorities to the capital planning committee, for instance, that does talk about the buildings.
Okay, and so the Green Meadow Committee will also be talking about the whole mold issue and the air quality issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But as you point out and other people pointed out, they need to be able to get going in time for that for the more immediate needs before the start of the school year and some pieces of the construction too. So if that's not the case, then that's on that part we need to make sure happens. Like we need to make sure it happens.
And another thing is, Dr. Girardi, you said earlier that you talked to the kindergarten teachers and they were concerned about going back. And I know, I'm a health professional, I know a lot about privacy and confidentiality, so I know you can't tell us per se what someone specifically said. But in general, if you could just speak to what is making them feel uncomfortable going in there, because I have a kindergartner going, and if a teacher is feeling uncomfortable going into a wing, then I want to know what they feel uncomfortable about, because I'm going to have my kindergartner go in that wing next year.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just talk a little about what gets them nervous?
Unfortunately, because of HIPAA, I can't talk about their personal concerns.
Can you talk about, would you feel comfortable telling us why it would be safe for our kindergartners to go in there next year?
I think that we should have a community conversation about this. So get this going with we have the committee going. We have the plan for what they're actually doing in the building as they're doing and then sit down and say, all right, so before we get to September, I guess that could be, I'm sorry, my brain is starting to melt down, and it's no one's fault, but it is. We have to be able to have a conversation so people can get questions answered and understand, here's the plan, here's what we're looking at for air quality, here's how we're going to continue to monitor, here's the maintenance. We take this list from the DPH and we say, here's the things that DPH recommended in their last air quality review, and there was a whole list of things at the end, included air purifiers, things like that, and we say, are these things happening? Are people still comfortable? Include the teachers in those conversations where they need to be able to consider not just the DPH regulations, but their particular health concerns, and move things around. And Bob was having some of those conversations just this morning? Okay.
Right.
So, and we need to make sure those things are happening.
Right, because moving a third grade wing into where kindergarten teachers don't feel uncomfortable, in my mind, isn't a solution, because you're still having kids in there whether they, and every grade you're going to have kids with lung quality issues.
Yeah, we're not
or-
going to just do that for sure. There needs to be a larger
Okay.
plan in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Hillary Griffiths. I have several questions, but I think I can get through them faster. Some of them are just comments.
Okay.
With regards to everybody saying that they weren't aware of the HERA report from 2017, the thing that confuses me about that is that asbestos was discussed at the February 15th, 2018 school committee meeting. So I'm kind of interested in where, like, I assume nobody just made up the idea that there's an asbestos issue 3 months after the report was issued. So I'm confused about that part. I also am concerned that giving the school committee the benefit of the doubt, I think you're probably being given misinformation. The idea that we have extra pairs, we don't need to fill them, and we can cut one for next year at Fowler is bizarre to me, because my child, who has in her IEP that she's supposed to have a para, rarely does. So if we have extra paras because we're not following children's IEPs, that's not really that we have extra paras. And so I assume that, I just want to make sure that, you might not be getting accurate information when making those decisions. As far as the Green Meadow Future Committee goes, I think it's a great idea, but the responsibilities and the liabilities that the school committee has and the superintendent have, they don't get transferred to the future committee. I know Bob's contract says specifically that in instances of gross negligence, he can be personally liable. His liability doesn't transfer in court to volunteers who say they want to talk about the future. So it's really not, even though it can be a good cop-out at a meeting like this, in terms of like long-term liability, it's not a cop-out. If a teacher is sick from mold and they sue the town still has to pay. It's not like the parent volunteers suddenly have to pay. Also, as far as the PR firm goes and needing the PR firm to help with communication, I actually meant to bring this up 6 months ago at a school committee meeting. I appreciate the drive to improve communication, but I feel like it's somewhat misplaced. So, for example, there was an event that a lot of children were distressed by and unable to participate in due to disabilities. And for those kids, the event was really not a pleasant activity. But everybody got an email about how all the kids had a great time. So on the one hand, it was nice that I know Dr. Girardi's goals listed like numbers of contacts with parents. By increased communication, I don't think what parents are aiming for is an email that goes out saying, we had this great event, everybody was thrilled. It's more when parents reach out and say, my child, this event doesn't allow my child to participate, or it causes different issues for my child. They want responses to those concerns. If a parent calls and says that their child was hurt at school or doesn't feel safe at school, they want responses to those emails. They don't need a PR firm putting pretty pictures and videos that are scripted online. I think that goal is being dealt with not quite the way we want. And then with regards to the meeting on Monday, when Peter Campbell questioned if the same type of mismanagement that led to the problems with the mold and asbestos at Green Meadow was going to cause similar expensive and issues that would look bad for the town and cost a lot of money in the future, we're going to be subject to the same type of issues and same type of mismanagement. And the answer at that point was no. And I know for a fact that's not true. I know that we're at risk of expensive lawsuits for discrimination and expensive lawsuits for some other issues. And so I was really concerned by the way it was talked about on Monday, saying we've learned from this, we're creating Green Meadow Futures Committee, we're going to do a memorandum of understanding. All those things really are just with regards to a facilities issue. They don't address the overall issue of mismanagement in the schools. And I know a lot of people were caught off guard by the mold and asbestos issue, but anybody who's dealt with any type of issue with the school knows that's to be expected, dealing with the way things are. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Megan Kortler. I have twin kindergartners, and I know Dawn's not here. I was at FinCom on Monday, so I heard a lot of the questions, thoughtful questions and answers, and I was really just surprised and really disappointed at this the discussion about concerns versus evidence about mold and asbestos. I thought we were like turning the corner. You know, the meeting before last when there was apologetic tone. I was really hopeful that we were going to be able to not come back here and have all of this discussion that we just had tonight. So I'm really disappointed that I'm even standing up here talking about this. And I know she's not here, so I don't expect you guys to answer for her.
I do want to say, though,
Yep.
do you mind, okay.
No, go ahead.
So I think that, Karen, one of the things that she mentioned is an important distinction that there's the regulations.
Yes.
And we would have been shut down if they, in their mind, through their report, their testing, had said, this is it. So there's that, but then there's also ongoing concerns around health that we don't ignore. Like, we need to pay attention to that and find ways to be able to be moving that forward.
And that's what I came up to ask.
In relation to the conversations with FinCom, it was around costs, it was in relation to the context of the conversation they were having. It wasn't discussing the piece that we're left, that we need to make sure that we're addressing for the planning and the building in particular and some of it will end up relating, like if we're looking at difference in maintenance costs and how do we address that and moving forward with the build, like it does relate, but, so I think that that's the language, and I apologize if that came out wrong and Dawn's not here just to talk about it herself. But.
Well, I've got it, and I've got the written word, and it said that both the ASAP and the MTA reports indicate similar levels of mold spores, no toxic black mold. Both the ASAP and the Department of Public Health analyzed the data and stated that there's not a health or safety concern related to the concentration, but the school department has chosen to provide the air purifiers in occupied spaces as a precautionary measure. That's exactly what she said. So as far as the Department of Public Health goes.
She didn't say that. I just watched I was there, and then I watched the meeting again a second time. So I would have loved to hear those comments, because I think,
that's as
someone that has,
sorry.
as someone that has read the reports multiple times, and I understand, and I've stood up here and said, there's assumptions that were made about the reports. And if I was on FinCom, I would also want to know a little bit, obviously, to your point, Bethlyn, like, I don't think that it needs to go to the level of detail that we're discussing here.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important for them to know the nuance that exists in this discussion, that it is not a black and white issue, that there is no evidence. Well, if there's no evidence to them, why are we asking for money? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, they need to have a more clear picture about the assumptions that were made about fans in the hallway when ASAP was testing, and open windows, and the assumptions that we're making, right? Because we're assuming that those things were influencing, and they very well might be true. But we don't know. There are assumptions involved with interpreting reports.
Yeah, the results.
Right. So I understand that we have, the worst case scenario, which is, shutting down the building because we have a clear public, health hazard, and not. But we are in the middle, and we need to acknowledge that. And I think that I was just taken back. So I think a lot of people were, where it was like, wait a minute, I thought we've already admitted, we can't fix a problem that we don't admit we have, right? So we just need to be, we need to be aware of that when we have these conversations, to include the nuance of, this is the regulation, this is what the inspections say, these are the assumptions that were made, and we're going to keep going. So I just would like clarification that the committee and administration are committed to improving air quality in Green Meadow, because walking out of FinCom on Monday, I was under the impression that plan had changed. And so I would be happy to hear you guys say that.
We're definitely doing that.
Great.
Absolutely.
We're committed to the kids, to the staff, to try our very best to do what's right to make it a comfortable environment. We may not be able to satisfy 100%, but we're going to at least do the 80% that was talked about. We keep trying to do the right things. It's
Okay.
hard because you can't see what's,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's definitely hard.
Well, we all want it to happen right now, and some of it
Right.
does need to happen on a very specific timeline to actually be useful. So it's good reason that people are still asking questions and not, I get it.
And Natasha was mentioning school council, and I've mentioned this in conversations with other committee members, but I wanted to go on record related to communication. So not related to Green Meadow and air quality, but just as a new parent to the district this year. And I know that, Mauro, you're writing some policies and procedures. And so I really think we're in desperate need of a parent onboarding procedure. Because, I mean, I get an email that says, there's a school council meeting. I responded to the email to the principal and said, what is school council? And I did not get a response. So that is a sad, I mean, that's not, I don't think that's what we want parents to come in.
I totally agree that
Okay.
that is one of the things that also was on my list.
Okay.
But, there
Great.
are other things that are
Of
on
course,
my list
yeah,
that are.
it's down,
yes.
it's down here, but if it's on the list, that's great.
It is definitely on the list.
Okay.
Because that, I had the same thing when I first started Green Meadow. I was like, I don't even know
Well,
what
yeah.
the
Don't know
school
anything.
council
We
is.
talked a lot about different areas. So there's a communication task force that was looking at a lot of these things last year and did make recommendations, but then it's a matter of the people and the time to make those different pieces happen.
Right.
But it seems like there should be some easy fixes for some of this, the low-hanging fruit that could be addressed.
Right, and to that point, I think in a communication procedure of like, these are to other people's points about when staff changes, like there's other triggering events, right? We can be very clear about that.
Right.
And so we can bring all the leaders together, we can talk to colleagues in other districts and say, what are your triggering events that you always notify the
always
public? And so it's not about interpreting whether this issue needs to be
Yeah, there's some
communicated
low-hanging
at
fruit.
each point in time. It's very clear that if this happens, a notification gets sent and there's no question, and then we can measure people on whether they're following that procedure.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I think.
yeah. Go ahead.
People in line.
Julie Catronomy. I just had to piggyback on Megan's real quick. Can we suggest bringing back Donna's purple newsletter every week?
Yeah, so, yeah, that should definitely be.
I
think
really
that we
suggest
need
it,
a
especially for new parents. It gives an overview of every grade and then special events that are happening, or even you can throw in, the gym teacher left,
Staff still love that.
Could be in there.
I think
was
it's
great.
important to, some people aren't online as
Right.
much as other people, so I think bringing that back would really help your communication.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I used to love those.
I know. They're great.
Hi, Jessica Crafting again. Super quickly, I just feel like we kind of went over that kindergarten thing that I was really concerned about too when Annie said it, that the kindergarten teachers approached Dr. Girardi and were concerned, and you said it's a HIPAA thing, which, unless a specific, in case anybody doesn't know what HIPAA is, it's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which I'm like.
Health information,
Okay,
accountability and portability.
Thank you. It's been a long day.
Yeah, no, I hear ya.
And I'm trained on it every year. So that's, a specific person coming to you and saying, I have a health issue, and maybe then, because we could guess who your kindergarten teachers are, you wouldn't want to say it as opposed to like if you had 100 people. But that makes me think you had a kindergarten teacher tell you they have a specific health concern versus all the kindergarten teachers coming to you and saying, we all think this one thing. So can you clarify, you probably can't say this individual person, but it sounds, from what I've heard, it sounds more like it was all of them coming and saying something, and that feels like something you could share with us.
Yeah, we met as a team, and they actually shared an email with some concerns to
About
the
somebody,
school committee in general, about their concerns about going back to those rooms, their concerns about how it was going to be cleaned, and again, Karen was with us, so she actually gave us some good advice on how we could work together on that. But I really can't talk about our employees' health concerns, so I just know I
Okay.
can't.
But
so.
then for people to understand that he's saying the employees are concerned about their health. I feel like that wasn't, if people don't know what HIPAA was, they might not know that that's what you said, that some employees are concerned about their
Okay.
health going into the room. Just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, Lydia Clancy.
Hi.
First, I want to follow up on something that was discussed on Monday, and that was the dual principal model, which I've asked about twice in 2 separate meetings. The basis for the decision to choose that model and stick with it, and what was given as a response and justification for it was that there was a survey sent out to the teachers that supported this model. I have spoken to the teachers. They have not seen the results of that survey, nor do they think that survey supports that finding. So I would encourage you to release that survey or post it so that people can actually see that, because the dual principal model is still unexplained and expensive.
So I think it was brought to a school committee meeting. Our assistant superintendent had taken the survey, and there was benefits to the evaluation system being a better model of dialogue that she shared that was in the survey. So it was brought to the school committee a while back.
What's a while back?
I don't know the exact date. but
Okay, because I've been coming to all the school committee meetings.
It was last year.
It was last year when they made the decision.
So this was prior to starting the dual principal
No,
model?
it was after. So
It was sometime this year.
I know we all recall that our assistant superintendent did bring us that data and that it was shared. And I do believe it was shared with the staff as well. So.
Okay. Second, I just want to thank all of the parents for your continued commitment in getting answers, doing research in your free time, requesting records, financial documents, contracts, and emails at your own expense, and staying in communication with one another just to put the pieces of this puzzle together, because we no longer believe the answers we're getting and the stories we're being told. Stay the course. Don't let this go. And on behalf of the Maynard parents who have been texting me throughout the course of this meeting and throughout the course of the FinCom meeting on Monday, the question I keep getting asked is, Dr. Girardi, why are you still here? You received a vote of no confidence. The parents have no confidence in you. Why are you still here?
Thank you for the comment. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Sandra Scully. I just want to go back to the asbestos abatement and mold issue. So one thing that I'm not sure I understand clearly is that if we're putting in new drop ceilings in the kindergarten wing, and then we have a leaky roof, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Because we're spending, what is it, $13,000 a day doing the asbestos abatement and putting in new ceilings and all that, and we still have a patch and pray approach. Well, if it's still leaking, I mean, wouldn't it just be, wouldn't it make more sense to just hold off on it until we can build a new school, or just not use that wing at all?
So what was explained to me by the facilities director, because I had the same question, was that with the new false ceiling, if that does happen, again, they're going to try and patch. But if it fails at some point, different pieces, then the replacement ceiling tiles are very inexpensive to replace. So that's what he told me.
The ceiling tiles, what about the roof itself?
This is what, yeah.
I mean, it just seems like the source we know for the mold also is the roof. That's the number one source that, in speaking with, I think it's DPH, that they said that's the first thing that we need to get rid of and make sure that we clear up is a new roof.
Right.
And I'm just nervous that we're spending all this money and it's still going to continue leaking, and this beautiful new drop ceiling is going to be, completely damaged. So.
Understand.
Any other comments about that, or?
This is, we have a facilities manager who is in charge of all of the buildings, the schools and the town.
Is that Tim Goulding?
Nope, it's Aaron.
Aaron,
I had
okay.
heard from
Does Tim
Aaron.
report to him? Is he the building inspector?
Yes, yeah. I think Tim does report to him,
Tim
right?
is the assistant facilities manager. / is the DPW / facilities manager / he's got a lot of, he wears a bunch of
So
hats.
What else are you looking for? Because this is distinctly a question that we need to look at too. So we're not disagreeing with you that we need to try to figure out how, as a town.
Put more money aside or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my point is that
Yeah.
why put all this money into that wing when the roof is the root cause? And that's going to cause more issues to this new ceiling. Is that worthy of putting the money into?
So the quote that we were given, I think most recently, was $1.9 million for a new roof.
Right.
So, so that would have to go
And then
to
how
the
much would the
town.
abatement cost for that week? Or, I'm sorry, not 1 week, it would cost, what, 3 or 4 weeks, right? $13,000 a day?
No, that was, the cleaning cost.
Right.
The abatement is one, that's going on in that wing is one cost, and that is being covered by the insurance. I
All
think.
of it's being covered by insurance?
Yeah.
I thought
The
a part
abate-
wasn't being covered by
The
insurance.
abatement is
The
being
actual
covered.
abatement, the taking down of the ceiling is being covered by the.
So how much are we spending outside of the insurance on this process?
So listen, I get your line of questioning, and it's distinctly on everyone's radar as far as trying to understand how do we work this puzzle of we don't have 1.9 million to do the roof, we're redoing this ceiling and trying to understand the best way to move forward. So it's distinctly something that we need to, I really think that that's a prime question that I know everyone's going to moan when I say this, but that you can actually have the GM. That's one of the things that kind of committee is charged with, is trying to help understand how do we do this longevity, how do we work with the MSBA to get this, start looking at these questions and trying to understand how we're going to do this. And some of that has to be then going to the town. If we decide that it's that we're going to ask for all that money and redo I don't know what the answer is going to be, and that is a community question.
Right.
So that is why that kind of question would go to that committee.
Right.
And I appreciate the question.
Yeah, and I also think that because of that, there's going to be no salvation for the mold issue. That's just going to
Right, exactly. It
become
will end up-
recurrent.
Right.
It's going to
Yes,
recur and
potentially.
recur, and you're going to have kids in there. I mean, I don't have a kindergartner next year, but if I did, I'd be extremely concerned about that.
And I would like to hear, that's why I think having some sort of community forum before we get to that point so that we can see like what are the answers for what's happening and what we'll be able to do moving forward and how you're able to keep, if there is this, as it comes up, how are we dealing with it in a timely fashion so that it gets taken care of. I'm not being very articulate right now, but does that get to the root of what you're asking and you want to make sure it's considered?
I mean, as long as you guys know that it just seems like you're aware of the issue, then I guess that's fine. I'm not going to get any more answers, it sounds like, so.
We don't have them.
I'm trying to make sure that we strike this balance where like this forum, it's not the place to get I don't have the answers immediately at my fingertips. Some of them take us a while. I mean, I know it sounds like we should remember a meeting that happened in 2018 and we're not trying to be lack of transparency.
Right. It's just that we have teachers that are being put on medical leave, teachers that are leaving.
Yeah, they're
Is this going to
important
really
things to
fix the
consider.
problem? That's my concern, Is this
Yeah,
just going
it's
to be a vicious
timely, it's
cycle?
urgent and it's timely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. Dr. Girardi, as far as the abatement and the air quality, the industrial hygienist who's going to be taking air quality samples outside of the containment, how are we going to get those results before we know it's safe to send the kids? I know that the chance that there's a breach is pretty low, but I don't have a lot of confidence at this point, so I'd like to know how those data points are going to be presented to us.
Yeah, I was just told that the industrial hygienists, as soon as those results, because they would be working until midnight or, I don't know, pretty late, and then once the results came in, if there was a breach, they would call me and I would cancel school. That's how it's going to happen.
Okay, so if there's a breach, they're just going to call you? There's no place that they can post online data points or any kind of a threshold for safety so everybody knows?
We can ask our environmental consultant if it could be posted.
That'd be great, actually. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. The two-principal model, I know it got brought up Monday as well at the FinCom meeting, and from what I recall, the expectation was that initially it was considered a cost savings because one principal would be 12 months and one principal would be 10 months. But that's not how it is now. They're all 12 months. So I guess, how did it evolve to everyone being a 12-month when it was initially presented, the cost savings benefit would be because we're saving on 2 months for each? When was that decision decided?
So what happened was, it's, not all of them are 12 months, but some of them are. And what happened was over the summer, because of some of the changes with the schedules, because of the new contract, we needed to bring people in to help solve the scheduling and the placement problems,
So the Barth, Donna, and not Caruso, the high school, the other one, they're all, yes, they're all 12 months. I just looked.
Right.
They're the curriculum ones. So are you saying the leadership ones would have been 10 months?
Correct.
But they're all 12 months as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we're thinking about cost savings, if that model was presented to save that, I know that they have a 60-day notice that we have to give.
Yep.
Which is at the end of April. I'm wondering if the consideration would be made is that maybe we return to the model that was originally agreed upon, that if it's a 10-month model to save money, if it was initially thought that they didn't need to be a 12-month principal. Just throw it out there. Because it just seemed very misrepresentative to what was stated to what is currently known to be true.
Okay.
Okay.
I know that the great part about having a 12-month person is that during the course of the year, they are dealing with the issues at hand, and the summer gives them the opportunity to take a look at the big picture, and what do we want to look like? So I know you're not debating it.
No, and
Yeah,
personally,
you're
I
talking- yeah.
agree.
I mean,
But I think if it's presented in a way like,
Right.
hey,
Totally
this is
understand.
why, it just seems a little misrepresentative, and then we've
understandable.
then extended them each, so that's 6 months basically of salary.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would make sense, but doesn't match up, it doesn't jive with what was,
With the numbers.
or how it was presented. So again,
Absolutely.
talk about transparency.
Yep.
Bob, that's kind of one of those things that I think
Thank you.
is what we need to be cognizant of. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Stone again. I want to point out to the committee that it's not just the mold, it's the asbestos. If you look at what caused the damage to the asbestos tiles, and even if they're non-friable, damaged tiles are still hazardous. What caused the damage to the tiles was water damage. The leaking roof damaged the tiles, which caused the asbestos issue. If you don't know there's asbestos there, we could very well come back again in a few years and saying like, oh, there's another issue with the school. So far, this issue has cost us upwards of $1 million. Our roof cost $1.9 million. Our credit rating, our town's credit rating is AA3. It's the highest it's been in decades. Municipal bond rates are at historic lows. They're at 3.25%. You're not saving any money by delaying needed upgrades and replacements. Fix the roof or give us a new school.
Hi, Josh Morse. I have two girls in the pre-K program. No need for a response to this. I just wanted to get it on the record. Following up on the last comment and with the comment made by Aaron at the Finance Committee meeting, I understand that the replacement for the entire roof is approximately $1.9 million. Aaron felt, and I agree, that $800,000 would cover the entire flat roof portion, including the pre-K wing. $800,000 is a lot of money. I recognize that. With the current bond rating, amortized over a 20-year bond, this would yield approximately $50,000 a year, which represents 0.1% of our budget. I understand that we're up against it when it comes to our debt ceiling, but I think that that is a manageable amount of debt to assume as a town. The other thing is if we really are, if it is that much that we need to go to the town for support, it works out to less than $10 a year per property owner. So I too agree that as part of taking the next steps, we need to be prepared to make investments. And maybe not a complete wholesale new roof, depending on what we determine for the long-term plan for Green Meadow, but I do think we need to invest capital dollars there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Sanders again. Bob, when you went to the two-principal model, I should say, did you look at other districts to see what they were doing and who had it?
So I don't think we're going to be able to further talk about the two-principal model tonight. I appreciate the questions about it.
I just want to mention that Lexington, which is a lot bigger than us,
Yeah,
one principal, one assistant principal, 10 schools, they have 6 principals total.
yeah.
We have 6 principals for 3 schools. I mean, and they're making 100-something each, that's a little high. I mean, how are they able to function with 10 schools with that model? One and one.
Yeah, I really think we should. Thank you. I'll take that into account.
Hi, Sarah Donnelly. I want to sort of direct this question to you, or comment to you guys, and that is that there's so much motivation right now to try and get money where it needs to be and where we want it to be, and to fix Green Meadow, to fix the roof. These are comments and concerns and motivation that need to be directed to the BOS and the FinCom. They absolutely need to be here too. But if this amount of people could show up at those meetings and tell our town officials that create the budget, we have a new TA in town administrator, and it's an awesome opportunity to look at things differently than they have been looked at year to year to year that has gotten us to this point. And I think that if we can get the people that are really motivated into those meetings, we might have some more progress in that direction.
Thank you, Sarah. I think we're moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. Anyone else that has anything else that comes up, you're very welcome to email us. We're going to move on to the rest of the agenda. So we have Steve here, who has waited a long time for the Fowler Field project.
How are you?
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Okay, so the last 3 years, we've been working on the Fowler Field project, and we all know what the shape of it is and how it looks out there. We've got our money. Can I have somebody run that for me? Because it's got an icon up there.
Can you do it, Colleen?
Actually, Colleen, you take the minutes up.
Oh, she's going to start.
Thank you, Colleen. Go ahead, we'll go. Oh, you want me to?
There you go.
Okay, so we started a group to work on the field and to help the high school sports soccer program, Friends of Maine and Soccer, which I'm a member on that. Jim Hines and Barry Roach. Together we formed that with a core group of very motivated and good helpers.
2006 or something, wasn't it?
Well, I started in 2008, but in the last 3 years, we've really gotten something done. And so we formed a 501(c)(3) C3 organization. We've fundraised. I'm also a member of the CPC, member of the Recreation, and I'm also the varsity girls coach. So we've worked that funding, and we've gone through the process for very slowly with the CPC to get money. Because of how important that field is to the town. We have 350 kids in Maynard Youth Soccer that use that field, do the Tiger Cub program there, and all of the youth teams. Other towns come there, and the varsity and JV and middle school teams are all out there every day during the fall. So when we started the Fowler Field, we know it was in disrepair. A typical athletic field needs 6 inches of loam. We had the field tested, it only had 1 inch. There was no irrigation at the field at all. The pH is measured at 4. It takes between 6 and 8.5 as a pH level to even grow grass. So we could grow weeds really good when it was the season. Field didn't grade. We'd have puddles out there all the time, couldn't use it in bad weather. And so we just couldn't grow grass out there, in trying with fertilizer, seed. It just wouldn't take because it wasn't a good source. And that's what the field looked like now. You see, as soon as fall comes, crabgrass goes dormant and there's nothing there. Okay. Some of what people are saying is there are injuries, and I've seen broken arms, broken collarbones, broken wrists, knees, ACLs, all of that. The field is not a very good representation of what the town is and how passionate as a town we are about soccer. So we think that it was time to to make this field into something that would be both playable, safe, and a good representation of the town. This is what we're hoping to get to. We'll have the two fields. One year it'll be faced this way, the next year it'll be faced the opposite way to minimize the wear and tear on the fields. Netting around so it doesn't have to go into the thorns and everything off to the side. Okay. So VHB, we've worked with them because we got CPC to put up $30,000 that we did a design study on it. And their first estimates were it was going to be well over $2 million to do the field, take it way down and then build it back up again. But we've brought them back into a little bit more of reasonability and what we can do. So we talked about putting a sand cap on the field. That'll help grade the field so we'll have the proper pitch to it. And then we'd put 6 inches of loam on top of that and then seed and irrigation. The bid package, the way we had to do it was we sent out the first bid package was for the $258,000 part of it. We were able to raise that amount of money to be able to put it out to bid. Irrigation, they estimated 150, and they have to put in a 20% contingency. So 457 if we got everything at what they expected. So we were able to raise $388,000. We got 225 from CPC. At town meeting, we got voted 80,000. The school had pledged in 30,000. Maynard Youth Soccer had given 15,000. Local business contributions were 17,000. And we've had some fundraising, and we were able to get 11. So we got to 388. So we had enough that we could send a bid package out. Yeah, that's, you can go by that one. Thank you. So there's also some other things that we were hoping to get on there, like you saw on the pictures with the netting and maybe an irrigation well, so our watering wouldn't be depending upon the weather and how the water, what water band is in place and stuff like that. It also, the original scope was defined to just those two fields. We added an add alternate that they would push it so it would be the whole size of the field, fill in a little bit of corners with the sand cap, the loam, the seed, and irrigation. So we sent out the bid packages in February. We got back 4 responses. One of them, North Turf, came in below our budget of doing everything. So they came out to $283,500. So we can do all of everything we wanted to do as far as the field is gone. So it's a big win.
Wow.
So with the
That's exciting.
283,000, Steve, you can do everything, or because you've got a slush factor, then you can?
Well, so we have a slush factor because you never know what's
Right,
going to be a contingency when they get out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that didn't include the netting and stuff like that. That would be extras that if the private money can go toward those extras, we can actually probably get all of it that we're hoping to get done there.
Wow.
Go ahead.
You could tell I wanted to ask. So, given that, I think the kind of like big question, given that the bid came in so much lower compared to the others, you know that they're, I mean, it's just to be asked.
Right,
because of
no,
the-
that's a great question. 'Cause that was
sounds suspect.
That was the first thing we went through. So the state bid thing, they have to take the low bid if they are able to do it, if they meet all of the criteria, and they do it. But we also, you know, on our side as the private side, we talked to people that were in the business, that knew about this company, and their opinion was that they were a very good company. They were exactly the type of company we would want to have to do this field. So we're very positive on how this came out and who we've gotten. So these are all like really good things.
Really good.
So So you have talked to other people, other towns that have actually used them for references, okay?
Yep.
You just dropped something. I don't know if you.
So these are some more of the pictures, and that just shows you type of the field and where the original things were. Oh, thank you. So we got a letter from Wayne Amico, who was part of BHB. He's like the civil engineer or the town engineer that they use. I think you all have a copy of that. That he states that this, they have investigated it and they agree that this company is able and willing to do it. So I am here tonight to ask you to vote to approve, to move forward with the contract written with North Turf for the price of $283,500. All of the money has already been set aside.
Wow.
It's all in the accounts where it's supposed to be, but since the field is the school field, you have to approve that.
When would the work start if we approve?
So
And how long would it take?
realistically, it'll probably be May. They'll have their work done fairly soon. I mean, within, I think, a month or so. We wouldn't play on the field again till fall of 2020. So this year we would, you know, as the varsity team, we'll go on the road. We'll be practicing in whatever piece of grass we can find, and we'll make do for the future. So, you know.
So what happens with like Tiger Cubs and all the other,
So
youth soccer that's
some will get moved to the front field, some would get moved to maybe the outfield of Crow. There'll be different places that they can go,
Okay.
okay? It will be a squeeze, and it will not be easy, but we have to start somewhere and do something.
Is the high school field available? Because I know that, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, where I think they do kind of an off-season.
Right, a lot of
So
times
one
they do
year-
close
one
it
year-
in the spring. My guess is maybe they wouldn't for that, but they do try to keep the alumni field for varsity sports only, just as a way to keep it in good shape for the games.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what kind of warranty do they give, Steve? Because I know there's been some issues with the playground at Green Meadow that, you know, after the fact. How much do
It was
these guys
also-
stand
yeah.
by?
There have been a couple
their-
projects where there have been some issues
Right,
after the fact.
so what kind of
I would
warranty
have
do
to
they
say
give?
I have no idea.
Okay, that would be an interesting, yeah.
Yep.
Or are they going to just do it and be gone?
Right. I'm sure that in the contract,
Mhm.
there'll be some performance things on what they get and what they do,
If you
for
could
sure.
strive for that, that would be really, really great. And then who's going to be overseeing the project from our town?
Aaron would,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And it does include an irrigation system?
It does
Or-
include the irrigation system.
great. Excellent. All right.
So that way we'd be able to maintain it going
great.
forward. So that was another asset we had of the school committee is we want to be able to put up signage for corporate sponsorship for the ongoing
Everybody else
maintenance.
does
So
it.
we not only, you know, improve that field but we make it sustainable so it'll stay in that condition.
Yeah, I believe we're taking that up in policy subcommittee.
Right, okay. I knew that the ask had been made, but I didn't know if there was an answer
We already had one
yet.
in place, I remember, because I think DJ's Field,
Right.
long time ago, we had to put together a policy, so maybe it just needs to be updated on the kinds of things that we'd allow to be advertised there.
Yep.
So when do you have a date by when you need that in place by, so that we can prioritize that as
Well,
policy subcommittee?
if you can make the vote, then Aaron will prepare the contract. So
Yeah,
that's
so-
the order.
Yeah, so the process, you know, everything's a process in these. So we have to have our next policy subcommittee
Oh,
meeting.
no, he's talking about this vote.
Oh, it's this
yeah.
vote.
Yes.
No,
Oh, okay, I'm
don't.
so
Yeah,
sorry.
no,
forward with
yeah.
the.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
the other one,
Then
we
ignore
have
me.
time.
The other one is
I mean,
Okay, we have time on that.
So we
one.
do have
Okay.
time.
We're good.
So then ignore the rest. So yes, that was a good thing. I would want to know that too, so that was good to know. Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the Fowler playground project as described.
Fowler
Fowler
Soccer.
Field.
Fowler Field, sorry.
Fowler Field.
No problem.
Yeah, Fowler Field project, sorry.
Okay.
I second.
All right, do we have any discussion, anything further? All right, then, all in favor?
Definitely. Thank you very much for all you
Thank you
guys for
very
your
much.
hard
I
work.
appreciate it.
Thank you
It's been
to
a long
everybody.
time coming.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for sitting here for as long as you did, too. Okay, so I am the one to move on to the next agenda item. So speaking of policy subcommittee, we have a meal charge policy, second reading. So for that, everyone was, we'd already reviewed, and people have had, in the first reading, it's just an initial, like, see what you think, after we've looked at it in policy subcommittee, and then see if there's any tweaks you want, and on the second reading, we can vote upon it as putting it into policy. And for that, we really pulled a lot from MASC, from the Mass Association of School Committees, and what they suggest for the policy, to make sure that it's clear and that it's equitable, and takes care of making sure people know their rights and stuff in relation to lunches, and that was an important thing that came up a little while back. Right. So I want to see if there's any other comments on that, anything people want to say about it?
Or you could just make a motion and then we could
Yeah,
discuss it.
so I'm going to, given this is the second reading, I'm going to make a motion to accept policy number 529, the meal charge policy, as currently written.
And I second.
All right, is there any other discussion on that? Okay.
Very straightforward.
Then we'll vote on that. What do you say? Would you agree?
All in favor?
All in favor, thank you.
It's getting late.
All in favor.
Now.
All right, next.
Futures.
All right, Green Meadow Future Committee. So, for this one, I did make some notes as well, because I wanted to make sure to have this conversation that we've been beginning to have and going back and forth with. So we obviously have not created, we haven't created this committee before, but we have been able to borrow from the expertise and experience from people that just worked on the Maynard High School. And Mary Branley is very familiar with that process.
As well as
So let me just go here so I can get to my notes. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is we have a list of people that did log their interest. So we have a spreadsheet of 24 people that were interested. We were trying to come up with the best process for this. So first of all, it's of course hard to have to narrow it down. So many people are interested, passionate, and caring about this from our community. But to be effective, any committee needs to have a cap on voting members. It actually needs to be an odd number so that you can break any ties. And you need, obviously, diverse membership so that you're representing numerous stakeholder groups and bringing different expertise and different perspectives so that you're having an appropriate process that's the best process it can be to make sure things get done. So the Maynard High School Committee had 11 members, which included a representative from DPW, FinCom, school administration, and then residents. They had an elected chair and other positions like a secretary, et cetera. So the two things we need to do tonight is we need to decide on our voting for the membership and also look at the charge and our initial idea for the mission of the Green Meadow Future Committee. So I think that I was going to move forward first with the members and then talk further about the mission. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I feel like, as opposed to the 11-member board for MHS, I feel like we should have more, in part because I think it's going to be different estimates. We don't know at this point, but I've heard anywhere from someone saying 5 years and to someone saying 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a range of possibility for getting whatever needs to happen with this building. As we've heard that what the MSBA process does when you do through the Massachusetts School Building Authority, that they actually look and they say, they go through, once you're able to engage them, they'll go through and help do an assessment so we can see, do we actually need a whole new building? Could we do a renovation on our existing building, demolish one part, and they kind of go through all of the options, and that's part of what this committee will, once we got to that point, this committee would be involved with and help make happen. We also have another consideration is what we have all clearly been talking about tonight, and that we want to make sure is being addressed on an ongoing basis while we have this building and we're waiting for the rest of the pieces to come into place. So there's really a dual purpose to this committee, and we believe that there should be more people on the committee as opposed to the Maynard High School, which at that point was just looking at, we need a new building. And I'm not saying that that's not what we need to make sure our eye on the prize is, but obviously there's going to be a point in time in which we're still in this building. So what we were talking about doing was having 2 to 3 people. Originally it was 3 people chosen per member. Justin had said that he was going to allow us to be the ones to choose. Dawn did send in, she was very sorry she couldn't be here tonight. But she did send in her recommendations. But in the course of having some conversations today, as we're trying to figure out the best way to do this process, I was looking at this list and I just didn't feel like, for my considerations, there are some that you can see kind of the role and the different perspective and representation they bring. But as far as what we asked for what is your connection to Green Meadow? And in some cases, if there's like a parent representative, we're thinking that what we'll do is allow for some additional wiggle room so the committee can ask some more questions of people where we don't have a lot of information, to be able to then allow themselves to fill in the committee a little further with another 4 to 5 members. So we don't have to decide on the exact cap of the membership. They can do that. They will be their own fully functioning committee that has their own public meetings that anyone can go to. They'll do their own minutes. They'll fully function as a board in town as any other board would. So we wanted to be able to provide the opportunity for people to be able to provide more information than what was asked here, because it didn't elicit enough to be able to make some considerations. So some of us have members that we know based on perspective we'd like to recommend, and then we're going to allow that board to come together. Within the next month, we're going to charge them to do that, if you agree. I'm just making that up right now for us to discuss further. Within a time-sensitive amount of time, decide on a chair, and then we'll give them some more immediate work to be able to fill in. So all that to say, is there anything else you'd want to add about that context of it before we choose members?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we'll start with Mary. Do you want to say who you would like to?
So I'd like to bring forward Anthony Mitty. I don't know if he's in the audience, but...
we do have a lot of people in the audience that were on that, so we'd love to see you.
Tony was one of the people that was instrumental from start to finish of the high school, so he obviously is a really good resource. Thank you for that huge commitment, and thank you for stepping up again. The other person I'd like to bring forward is Deb Roussel, who was here before. She has been, she has been a teacher in Maynard for almost your whole career. Retired now, lots of time, yeah, sure. You're feeling it, but yeah, from a teacher perspective, thank you very, very much for putting your name forward.
Do you want to do Dawn's?
Yeah, I'm going to do Dawn's next. So you have 2, and then we'll allow, okay, very good.
There was some overlap, by the way, so with us, so yeah.
So Dawn's 3 appointments would be Jerry Colbert. He was the previous Maynard High School Building Committee member chair. Hi, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's been already advising and helping us to put this together, so we greatly appreciate that for everything that you've been doing. And the second one that she suggested for appointment is Terry Morrison. She's a teacher currently in the system, and so that was a really nice opportunity to be able to have a teacher's voice on the core committee. And then I hope I say this right. Her last was I'm going to say parent representative as a term. Courtney Mancone, did I say that right? Mancone. She's not here. Okay, thank you. So her third was Courtney Mancone. So those are the three that Dawn wishes to appoint. And I'm going to write everything down so we don't overlap. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. I'd like to appoint Dave Kryger.
And he is?
He has 2 kids at Green Meadow.
So he's like a parent representative?
Yes. Yeah. And Megan Kortler, who also is a, yeah.
Yeah, and we know that for Megan being here, she's also been very involved in the considerations and concerns around asbestos and mold at Green Meadow. So I think that was, many of us felt that it would be excellent to have someone who's really has those considerations in mind that's directly involved on the core committee. And then for myself, all right, so for me, I would put Josh Morse forward. Thank you. Hi, Josh. So Josh has already been working with us on the MSBA application, and as you heard tonight, he has some very excellent expertise, both being a Maynard resident who has children in the system, kids in pre-K, and he's also the commissioner for Newton Public Buildings. And I went to a presentation several years ago, I don't know if I've mentioned it here, but at Mass Association School Committee Conference, where Newton was just one of the groups laying out the issues they're having with their public schools and a bunch of their elementary schools. So, I mean, it was a mess from what they were talking about. So we appreciate your view on the board and your consideration of like, how do we frame things so that we consider, like, do we just replace the Green Meadow portion of the flat roof so that we can get that taken care of? There are a lot of things that expertise would be very useful for us considering things as a town and what we bring forward and what we consider as a community. So thank you. And then Megan was my other one, you stole her. But
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's all right.
We have 8 right now.
Okay, so there are 8 right now. Part of my concern was that I felt like I couldn't do justice by being able to consider people that I didn't know. And so I feel like what we'd like to do is, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, Dawn had mentioned an administrator, and I didn't know if you wanted me to put...
Yes. Let's make sure we do that before you say anything further. Go ahead.
So I was going to put forward Charles Gabron.
I have questions about using Charles,
Okay.
partly because we pay him for his, a specific amount of hours that he works for us. And I would much prefer to have his paid hours be used for something other than this committee.
So I guess Jennifer Gaudet, Assistant Superintendent.
Wow. Puts a lot on her.
Yeah, I don't think that she,
Okay.
I think she's got already.
Why don't we
has a
wait on
lot.
that then?
Yeah.
She's got a lot on her plate.
The other option was one of the principals at
Yeah.
Green Meadow.
We were talking
That I
maybe
was-
Donna Dankner, but.
Principal Dankner?
Yeah.
I can
If you
nominate
can-
Principal
if you
Dankner, that'd be
wanna-
fine.
If you want to ask if.
Yeah, so what I'd like to be able to do is, as we move forward, so I want to see us start to bring in we're going to get into the second part of this, which is the mission, and then looking at not only the community members that we're appointing, but then also looking at other people that we need to bring in. And so, first off, in relation to let me close up this portion of it first, and then we'll move into that. So first off, in relation to the list of people that were interested, I would like to ask that those that have been appointed, that I don't know what you want to give for a deadline, but there is clearly time sensitivity to things, and I think people that have been in this room that are now appointed recognize this. And we will certainly work with you. We don't want to leave anyone hanging as we're all trying to do this together. So a deadline to be able to come together, have a first convening, to put together a chair, and then to look at the other interested members, come up with what they would want to ask them further, to elicit what they need to be able to decide on further members. Does that make sense to people? Okay, so as far as process for being able to come up with the additional members, I'd like to see that happen. And let's do this. So let's get to the mission and charge, and then we can kind of vote on a package and come up with when the first convening should be, and unless, do you have a sense of when you would like that at this moment before we get to the mission and charge?
They may need to doodle each other to figure out when they're available.
Well, yeah. With each other, and
But if
then
they do a doodle poll or.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then we could give them the additional names if they determine that they, that they want to reach out further and add to the committee. So I think it may take them a couple of meetings to determine how big they really think the committee should be.
I would suggest that we need to add a few more parent representatives at this point in time. So let's move into the second part of the mission, and that will align us back to what else might need to be considered for membership. So in terms of mission, we do have a template for ad hoc committee proposal that we were able to work from. And that gives us the purpose of, and we're going to do just the overall purpose. What we would do is have the committee could come together and really drill down to the specifics. So I guess first, I feel like we just took the thunder of the appointments. Can we just give a round of thanks and applause to the people that are willing to be on this committee?
And to everybody else that put their name forward.
Yes,
too.
let's do that too, because we still need you. This is not in any way like because those meetings are public and open, everyone is able and needs to be involved in this process, that we can really help to make sure that this gets considered in the way that it needs to be considered for our community altogether and the impact that it has. So the purpose of the committee, we have one of the primary charges in the long term is obviously similar to the Maynard High School. So you determine what needs to happen with the Green Meadow building: repair, renovate, replace, and being able to accomplish in the process their understanding what is needed technically, the proper technical and financial direction to take. So they're processing all that information and figuring all that out for the long term. So that's one mission.
Right.
Do we all agree? Is there anything else that we should discuss in relation to that?
That pretty much covers it.
Okay.
That part of it?
That part of it.
Okay.
So that
'Cause we
being
still
one
have that.
mission.
We still have the
Yes, you got it. So
issue.
I'm working on this
Right.
mission that's kind of
Okay.
the obvious, same as Maynard High School.
Right.
Okay. So then the second mission that we would, yes.
I just wanted to add one piece, because
Sure.
one of the things that came up, and I'm not sure if this is getting too particular, one of the pieces that's going to come up with we get into the facilities piece of like assessing everything, is they're also going to be, when the state gets involved, they're also going to be looking at all 3 school buildings to see, maybe we put an addition on or something like that, but I think that's probably getting into more detail than we need to for this, because it'll be an all-encompassing school environment. That's what they did
I gotcha.
when they did the high school, to see,
okay.
do we want to absorb everybody into 2 schools, for instance? But I think this should cover it, so just
Okay.
as long as it's out there, just as long as we've got notes to say that that might be part and parcel, but other than that.
Okay. All right, very good. And then the second mission is that, and much more immediate, and this is where we're going to need to start having more immediate conversation too about how the timeline and what we're doing with this group. And it may be that we just need to, we're going to need to, I'm just getting the sense that we're going to need to have a separate group that can meet and do some of the more immediate needs, because this group, as people have been saying, and I'm always ever hopeful about my project management timelines. And it doesn't always work out that way. So, mission 2 is to take, in the meantime, to create and and monitor the air quality plan and maintenance plan for the Green Meadow building and related metrics to continuing to assess health concerns and ensure that people are comfortable there, engaging key stakeholders, including, and I would suggest for that part of the mission, bringing in teachers, the people that are concerned, and hearing those perspectives in that building to make sure. And there's some time sensitivity. The one component of that is a time sensitivity piece that goes with before you go back into that building in September 2019. The other piece of that's been identified tonight is is that roof. Darned roof. I don't know if that was succinct enough at this moment. Is there anything else you would say about that part of the mission?
No, I think
No, I think it speaks to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so for that part of that's going to be the more immediate thing that this group begins to deal with. And that is, in that regard, that is why I would suggest that we are adding more parent representatives, and that then we also look at how we're pulling in the teacher perspective, and that there's, I think that for the time being, seeing, I think that you can do it either as an actual core member, or you could do that there's someone that's a liaison that is going to actually just be able to have the conversations that need to happen in order to make sure that they're getting the perspective for the core. And I think the committee could work that out with the person, like Karen was the one that was doing that today and brought up the concern.
Right.
So through the MEA, they could start having that, they have that and figure out that piece and make sure that gets that bridge is created in whatever way it needs to be.
Yep. That sounds good. That works.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you necessarily need to take a vote. I think as long as you're in
Right.
agreement.
Okay.
You can vote on
I agree.
agreeing on
Yeah.
the appointments and the mission.
Reading it.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah, okay. Then we do have, just to state it, there's this whole form, and right now what we're trying to do is give some scaffolding to this. It's clearly going to become its own entity that's able to continue to work and do what it needs to do, and report back to us, and we will be able to provide support and have report back. So that's the other piece that I think that we want to make sure that we're putting in here, is that there's report back. There's also a whole bunch of other things. There's purpose, rationale, time frame, tasks, timelines, and deliverables, communication, sharing of results, resources. And as things stand right now, the term for serving, if we follow the MHS, would be it expires on December 31st, and the members can rejoin or drop off. So every year they could reassess, or as often as they needed to, membership. And if the direction is changing as they need to change whatever is going on the ground, they could pull in new members or shift. So they'll have to go through and look at the particulars and the specifics. And then I think that we should ask them to return to us after they've got the specifics worked out, so that that everyone is aware of the purpose of this committee, and that it's all considered as a community.
I think it would be beneficial to, maybe next steps are, to get that committee together, the people that are, that we've designated, and to have them look at this proposal.
Yes.
And because we've got such expertise, just
Yes.
with Josh, with Jerry, with Anthony, that have been on this before.
Yep.
That, to have their input, and maybe to have them come to a meeting very soon, as
Yeah.
fast as they can, to solidify this.
Yep.
And then they move forward from there, and then come back with their first set of, results. That would be my recommendation.
Great. And then at that point, I think that before that, yes, I agree. So we'll need to make sure that we obviously get everybody in touch. we had them back either, so the 25th is a public hearing meeting, so we can see if they're able to come back. And we usually do a public hearing portion, and then we still have our regular meeting, is that correct? So they potentially come back on the 25th. We'll have to see what, because it seems like there's enough, we have suggestions based on the MHS committee, so we have something to work from. So that seems like that could be doable. Okay. So then the other piece of this that I think needs to be in the sphere of discussion is just that there are clearly some more time-sensitive things that are of more urgent consideration. And I feel like we need to make sure that there's some way that within the system those are getting addressed. And Bob, I think that that's going to end up, this committee isn't going, there are going to be things that we need to identify and ensure are getting taken care of, given that the timeline isn't going to be fast enough to be able to take care of some of the more time-sensitive things. And that everyone needs to know is there's a plan and it's being taken care of.
Yeah, so I think they will invite people, like if they would like to invite me or the principals, although Donna will be on it, because I think there's going to be time-sensitive things like we have to plan the schedule in advance. So if we are going to move the 8th grade, that has to be a decision that has to be made quickly, right? Those are the kind of things that they can invite us to, the leadership team, and we can have those discussions with them and get their input on that. And then we can all bring it back to the school committee. But those, I hear you, there's those time-sensitive things that we have to plan now for next September. And that's a really important one, where are all the staff going to go when that wing is open? That's an important discussion.
Well, yeah, and ensuring that we feel like we've had the necessary conversations, that everyone's comfortable with what's going to happen, and that they're involved in those decisions as opposed along the way, right? But there are also some, even in relation to making sure that were brought up tonight in relation to, by the time when we get to the renovation portion and
Yeah. Like the wash, the enzyme wash, and those sort of discussions are all timely too. But I think a lot of them have that expertise, so that's going to be great.
Okay. All right. So I think given that, I think what I would like to ask is that we, for the time being, look at there's regular, given that so much is going on, and I don't know, that we talked to this committee about how we keep in very regular communication, the best way to do that. I don't know if it's that they're every second meeting that they're presenting perhaps and sharing back, because so that we're clear, then the community is able to give their considerations and that they're able to hear those, a representative.
I feel like
or we're at their meeting, I don't know what it would be.
Well, it would be helpful, I think, to get the minutes from their meetings, so that we.
And those are publicly.
And if they can get together quickly, the 11th would be a good meeting too, right? Can they come even earlier than the 20th?
Yes, if they're able to come.
If they're able to, it would be great to have them back quickly so that we can keep things moving as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to just vote because I feel like this is important. So I would just like to say we are voting upon the appointments that we have put forth just now and the dual mission, both for the longer term, for what a new building or a new plan for a new Green Meadow would look like, whatever that, and then also the more immediate needs that we've been talking about related to the concerns at Green Meadow around air quality and around maintenance of that building to ensure that everyone's health is optimal.
First priority between now and September would be the second one that you,
Yes.
And then take
like
a look
that
at the
should
big
be
picture.
first.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
has to
sorry.
be. We're
So
running
flip that.
on a
That's
short
mission
time.
one.
Yeah, we're running on a short timetable here.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So I would like to see if, I guess I'm going to make a motion for that package for this particular GM Future Committee to continue moving forward, that those are the grounds in which we're moving it forward.
I second.
Any further discussion?
Can't
Okay.
happen fast enough.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone who has been involved with this.
Thank you for
We are
taking
not
it
done.
on.
So please know that. So, thank you very much. Next thing on our agenda is
Is the budget.
the budget
Yeah,
update.
Which we've talked about to a certain extent. And again, this is the initial recommendations that were done by the leadership team. To say that we are fortunate to just have a $100,000 deficit right now is a sad commentary, but we are fortunate to, we've had years, I think last year, where we started significantly off from that. So, and we're still hoping that Chapter 70 funds are going to come through. So, because it's still fairly early, so we're still hopeful for that. But that being said, the leadership team tried to find the places that were going to affect the system.
Least, we also through
least
attrition.
painful,
So it
right,
wasn't
and
like we were
exactly,
letting staff go. That's why we looked at different, staffing where we had, we wouldn't have to hire somebody back.
Right. So I don't know, was the list there? Does everybody have it? Do you want me to, I can go through it. So special education consultant at Green Meadow, increased the occupational therapist to 0.7 to reduce the consultant costs, the out-of-district independent consultant costs. So that was about $23,000. And then I had mentioned before, adding 2 case collaborative classes to Fowler, which actually brings in revenue, so that will bring in $15,000, lessening the deficit. And then the special education paraprofessional for $16,000 because the position is currently unfilled. And then taking the 0.8 Fowler strings and chorus from within the school day to after the school day. And we heard from Lydia about, the effect of that. So that's the $50,000. So we've been really fortunate, I have to say. I felt that we were really fortunate to be able to maintain some of the things that we worked so hard to put into place this year. And I mentioned before the OASIS program up at the high school to try and bring some of the kids back into the school for their benefit and also for cost maintenance, but really to help them acclimate back into the school system. The dyslexia program that we added this year for grades 4 through 6. The co-teaching that we piloted this year for grades 1 and 4. I know grade 4 had a little bit of a ruffle, but and that is the same kind of program that has been done. A lot of research went into that kind of teaching, and quite a number of districts in the area have been doing that. So we're continuing. And I'm in my comments, Bob, I know we were talking about having them come back, and I think Jennifer mentioned the first meeting in April to have those teachers come back. They came, I think, October or something, and they had said that they'd come back in the spring, so I'm looking forward to hearing that. The Chapter 74 WAVM program that we put into place, the track, and computer science in K through 12, and also as a result of the contract, the teacher contract, we did add the specials of art, music, wellness, library, and language, so that the teachers could have common planning time. So I'm feeling good about the things that we were able to maintain, that we didn't have to add and then subtract this year. So we will have additional conversations based on the comments that came up tonight. As Beth Lynn said, there will be a public hearing also, but I'll take your comments back and we'll have additional conversation, I guess.
So just to, if you could reiterate, because there was a lot of kind of back and forth in relation to some of it earlier. So the process by which we got to this, just so that people can understand, because you have, if you don't mind just to explain
So we have the budget subcommittee that is made up of finance committee, selectmen, and school committee, 2 of each, that we work with throughout the year. And I have to say that the Board of Selectmen worked really, really hard to make the deficit as low as we possibly could. They really, they made cuts other places to try and keep our funding as close as they could. So that's where the $100,000 came from initially, and then from there, the leadership team got together and came up with these cuts. Bob, I don't know if you want to say anything more, or? I mean, we have
I
to
think
put
you covered
faith
it,
in,
yeah.
yeah, we have to put faith in the people that we've hired, the leaders to, you know, to do what they feel is the right thing. So, that's where we are.
So the next, we have April 11th is our next meeting, so we can give update then.
Yep.
And then April 25th will be the public hearing day.
How set in stone are these cuts?
There were recommendations, so we'll
So
go
we
back
The
and we'll
hearing is
talk
the
again.
decision. The hearing's the final decision.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so
You still have 2 more
We
meetings.
can have
Things can
conversation.
still
They can still be
change.
fluid, right? And I was hearing comments tonight, so we'll bring those back and see if there's a different alternative, or see if they really feel strongly that this is the best way to go. So,
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's a good question to understand. Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Right.
some of the, I also agree with Lydia about the strings. And it's, although it would be good to know where the strings program, I mean, I know we have the choral program, but where the strings program is going, which I'm not sure that we necessarily
Right.
know.
Right,
But,
because this was the first year of the
right.
strings, too,
Yes.
so.
So it seems to me kind of counterproductive to put it in place and then take it away. So, so that's part of it, but also, some of Jen's suggestions about, bringing more kids back into the school system and whether or not that is an option would also, I think we need to look at. So.
Yeah, I think given the considerations tonight, it would be good to be able to focus in on.
Right.
I do feel like so there's this particular thing, but in general, having some of the discussion, as CPAC liaisons, we were able to have conversations with CPAC and then meet as part of the administrative and CPAC board meetings. And there we can have some further discussions around some of the larger picture, like making sure that we feel like we're trying to serve all the kids within district, which I think, obviously, I feel like we talk about that. That's been a constant conversation for multiple years, but how do you continue to build that capacity? What does it look like? And while we don't have the expertise, we can at least try to facilitate the conversation and considerations of the community and making sure that those are really being considered as we look forward. And particularly, it sounds like paraprofessional is another thing that we need to really try to talk through more in that group. So in any case, so I think that there's this particular year, and then there's also like larger moving forward.
Right, and I know when I came back on the committee a couple of years ago, I guess now, Mary Murch and I met with the special ed director, Carol, and we delved really into that, and she understands that, I mean, there are some children that just won't be successful in the school system, and they need far more services than we could provide. But she seems to be right there with us, that when in doubt, it's the best case scenario to have a student be included in the school system.
For everybody.
For everybody, for the whole gamut.
He wants
So,
people in their community.
Right. So she has heard that, and she understood it before we even had that conversation. But we can have that conversation with her again, too, so, okay.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the MSBA Statement of Interest, the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
So as part of the MSBA Statement of Interest process, our application must include a letter of support from the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. I provided a draft letter of support to the school committee for the Green Meadow Core SOI Statement of Interest application, and I would like you to approve and sign this at this meeting. We're also going to attend the Board of Selectmen meeting on April 2nd and ask them to do the same. The letter does not bind the school committee or the Board of Selectmen to fund the project. That requires many steps along the way and a townwide vote of support. This letter really is just supporting the project and supporting the process. So I would like to ask the school committee to vote to approve this letter tonight and then to sign it, so we can put it as part of the package.
I do want to just give a shout out and thanks to Mary Branley, who's working on this, and Josh
Josh,
who's
too.
been in the
Yeah, like I
audience.
say,
that's
Josh
working
was
this. And
instrumental.
Megan actually we had a conversation where she was making sure that that did not get lost, that we were able to harness our community resources to make sure that we're putting in the best application we can. So really appreciate that.
So we need a vote tonight
Yes, we do.
and some signatures.
Okay, so I guess we'll just straight up do that. If there's any discussion, we can do that in the process. How's that? Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the letter being sent from the school committee to the Board of Selectmen in favor of moving forward with the Massachusetts School Building Authority application.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any further discussion on that letter or consideration? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so you want us to sign that tonight before we go?
Yeah, before you go.
Okay, very good.
You just can't forget it.
Yes, we cannot. Okay, so we're going to move in the members' comments and questions. And do you have any?
So I just wanted to give kudos to the middle school. I saw their incredible honor roll. It was amazing how many of the students, how well they're doing, and I was just really, really impressed. And I wanted to follow up on the conversation that we had Monday, the Finance Committee, about the sense of urgency of us really being proactive, again, about this foundation budget. And I don't know I guess I'm looking for advice on. I know we've got Kate Hogan on our side, we've got Jamie Eldridge, but I'm feeling like we just need to do more, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. Because even Michelle Resendez just being at that meeting where she was in front of Governor Baker, and talking about how enrollment in every city and town is decreasing, so that's one more way that the foundation budget is not now working in that. So I guess I'll take that on myself to reach out again to Jamie and to Kate to find out. I had said to Kate a couple of months ago, I said, how do we get in front of Governor Baker? I just want to get face-to-face with him and tell him the idiosyncrasies that Maynard has, being a small community. But, so anyway, so just wanted to let you know, I'll let you guys know what else they recommend.
I was wondering whether or not there's a way, because it sounds like there's one equation for every single town. And why is that? Why can't there be more than one depending on your demographics or, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Because we're not Boston. Right.
And we're not Concord.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I know that Dawn at some point had sent a note to Jamie Eldridge saying, I really want to understand what the equation is to know, is it, as it stands now, is it going to help or hurt Maynard? Or should we be advocating for it, or should we be fighting to say, no, you're not doing it the right way? And from what I understand, she hadn't heard from him yet. So, and it could be just because it's difficult to digest or that. But anyway, so I'll follow up on that and see what we can do proactively.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
I don't have anything. Not tonight.
I just have a few things. One was along those lines, which is that there is like an advocacy day at the State House. We're going to try to make sure we have representation there. So that is May 1st?
Yes.
May 1st. Yeah. So Mara, you can
go.
Yeah.
And I may go.
So Mara was going to go to that. Because it's about in relation to the foundation budget and being able, so I think that is one place where we can get some talking points and get our ducks in a row on a number of levels, that we can talk to CPAC, talk to a couple of groups and start really looking, trying to pull together as a community. Because some of this that we end up dealing with, like if we could yeah, there is a lot of financial underpinnings to the struggles that we face and the difficulties that we face, and even together trying to work these problems out that we're dealing with.
Right.
So, and not just on the school, but as a town,
Right.
trying to figure
Exactly
things
right.
out. So that'll be really great. We also, thanks to you, Mauro, have evaluation training coming up for superintendents.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
Do you want to talk about that so that I'm not the one to?
Yes. So Wednesday, April 3rd, we have a representative from the Massachusetts Association, right?
School
Yeah.
committees.
Association of School Committees, coming to do a workshop with the school committee on goals for what I'm hoping that we're going to end up with is goals for our district that we can then pass to Dr. Girardi as his goals for his evaluation. And that we could break them down so that if we have a 3 or 5 year goal, that we break them down by year and that will be measurable. So that is what my hope is, that Wednesday, when we finish, that's what we'll have.
That's what we'll have.
Yes.
Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't realize that resource was out there.
And it's a free resource, which is also really
Yes.
nice. And I think that we've been really looking to, it's nice to have that resource in general. There's a bunch of things I think we've been relying on them for. And along with that, I do want to say that when we're talking about school council, that I think they had their individual level and building, like everything should align. So we want to I would love to see us make sure that we're including looking at use those to feed into whatever we're deciding overall.
It's a state mandate, yeah.
Because it's all meant to align, and I think
right.
that is for sure, we need to better utilize and include those groups.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that for that meeting, we should make sure we have the latest goals and priorities from each of the buildings, school councils.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so then I guess I just want to say that I know that we need to make sure things get done, but just being a part of the community and all of us in this together, I'm just so grateful for the people and how much people care, and that we are here and having conversations that matter. And I do apologize for ways I come across, when I'm tired and trying to help facilitate conversation. But please know that we're always here and want to hear from you, and we truly are part of this community and care very deeply. And we know that you all do too. And that's an important place to start from. So thank you. I guess that's all I have to say. So we thank you for being here for this long meeting, for many long meetings you've been having. We really appreciate you being here. So we're done. We're actually going to be moving into, to close out the public portion of the meeting without intent to return, and we're going to be moving into executive session per Mass General Law CH30A S21-3. And I believe I take a roll call at this point. Right. So and I only do members that are present, or do everybody?
No, members who are present.
Just members who are present. So Mary Branley?
Yes.
Mara Hogan?
Yes.
And Bethlen Houlihan? Yes. Thank you. We'll pause for a moment while we wait for the
Meeting adjourned.
meeting adjourned.